You think 1970s recipes were just fondue and frozen dinners? Think again. Home cooks across America created dishes so satisfying they defined comfort for an entire generation. Let's dig into 100 recipes from the 1970s you need to eat in your lifetime. While macaroni and cheese is often considered the ultimate comfort food, adding stewed tomatoes turns it into something unique, balancing the creamy, cheesy richness with a hint of tangy sweetness. Macaroni and cheese dates back to the early 1700s, with recipes appearing in both European and American cookbooks. The combination of pasta and cheese was revolutionary, and its popularity soared when processed cheese became widely available in the 20th century. By the 1950s, boxed versions made it easier than ever to bring the dish to the table. As for stewed tomatoes, they've been a pantry staple in many households, especially during the harvest season. Stewing tomatoes was a way to preserve the bounty of summer for colder months. When paired with macaroni and cheese, the acidic tomatoes cut through the richness of the cheese, providing a satisfying contrast. While it might seem like a basic dish, macaroni and cheese with stewed tomatoes is the kind of meal that hits the spot every time. Another item on this list is head cheese. Don't let the name fool you. There's no cheese in head cheese. Instead, it's a terrine or meat jelly made from the flesh of a pig or calf's head. Sounds appetizing, right? Variations of head cheese exist throughout Europe and elsewhere, with differences in preparation and ingredients. A version pickled with vinegar is known as souse. Head cheese was a way to use every part of the animal, especially during times when food was scarce. It's a dish that's rich in flavor and history, but not exactly a crowd pleaser in modern times. While you might still find it in some specialty delis, it's not the kind of thing you'd bring to a potluck without a disclaimer. Beef and cabbage skillet supper was dinner that smelled like strength. Ground beef browned in a cast-iron skillet, joined by chopped cabbage, diced onion, and a pinch of pepper. Everything sizzled together until the cabbage softened and the beef turned rich and flavorful. The steam fogged the kitchen window, the air thick with the scent of home. It was hearty but light, a full meal in one pan, made for nights when everyone was too tired for fuss. The cabbage soaked up all the juices, creating something between a stew and a stir-fry long before stir-fry was ever trendy. A few splashes of vinegar gave it brightness. A spoon of sugar softened the bite. It was both humble and bold, the perfect balance of thrift and taste. Every bite carried the memory of work boots by the door and quiet gratitude at the table. It was not just dinner. It was survival turned satisfying. Few aromas could fill a church kitchen quite like freshly baked dinner rolls. Soft, buttery, and served warm, these rolls were a symbol of homemade care and hospitality. Devotion dinner rolls were the kind of recipe passed down through families, often scrawled on flour-dusted recipe cards and perfected over decades of Sunday suppers and holiday feasts. Homemade bread has deep roots in American culinary history, long before mass-produced loaves became the norm. In the 1970s, scratch-made dinner rolls still held their place on church tables, reflecting a time when baking bread was both an act of love and a nod to tradition. With simple, affordable ingredients like flour, yeast, and butter, these rolls were versatile enough to accompany anything from soups to pot roast, making them a must-have at potlucks. So why are they now more a memory than a staple? Blame the rise of convenience foods. The introduction of prepackaged rolls and frozen bread dough offered busy cooks a shortcut that didn't involve kneading or proofing. And while nothing quite compares to the taste of homemade, time-consuming recipes often took a backseat as modern life sped up. In the 1970s, grabbing a snack off the grocery shelf was simple. No long ingredient lists, no allergy warnings, just food in a package. If a product contained peanuts, dairy, or wheat, it was up to the consumer to figure it out. Those with food allergies had to play detective, carefully reading labels, if they even listed all the ingredients. There were no bold warnings, no may contain statements, and certainly no standardized regulations to prevent cross-contamination. Food manufacturers weren't trying to be careless. The awareness just wasn't there. While allergies existed, they weren't as widely recognized as they are today. A peanut butter factory might also process cookies, but there was no obligation to disclose that. For those with severe allergies, eating processed food could be a game of Russian roulette. One mislabeled snack, and a hospital trip wasn't out of the question. The turning point came in the late 1990s and early 2000s when food allergy cases became more widely studied, and advocacy groups pushed for better labeling. In 2004, the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act was passed, requiring clear identification of the top 8 allergens. With a name that evokes a French bistro and a flavor that feels like home-cooked comfort, chicken fricassee bridges the gap between elegance and nostalgia. This classic combines tender chicken with a creamy, flavorful sauce and an assortment of vegetables. The roots of chicken fricassee lie in French cuisine, with the term fricassee appearing as early as the 15th century. What sets it apart is the technique. Chicken pieces are first browned lightly, then simmered slowly in a sauce that often blends broth, cream, and a touch of white wine. Julia Child famously described it as halfway between a sauté and a stew. And if Julia said it, it must be true. Vegetables like carrots, celery, mushrooms, and pearl onions elevate the dish, adding texture and natural sweetness to complement the savory chicken. In many American households, this meal became a way to transform humble ingredients into something elegant. While its name might sound intimidating, chicken fricassee is surprisingly practical. It's one pot, easy to make, and the leftovers taste even better the next day, if they survive that long. Fricassee is the dish that makes you feel like you've been to Paris, even if your passport expired decades ago. Few dishes command attention quite like a well-prepared crown roast. Traditionally served at homecoming dinners and holiday gatherings, it was the kind of dish that made guests stop and admire before the first bite. The ring of bone-in pork chops, arranged in a regal circle, was as much about presentation as it was about flavor. For families looking to impress without breaking the bank, the pork crown roast was a surprisingly economical choice. Pork was, and still is, one of the most affordable meats, and butchers often offered deals on bulk cuts. The apricot glaze, a key feature of this recipe, added just the right balance of sweetness and depth, while a bread-based stuffing packed the center for an even heartier meal. Preparing this dish took skill and patience. The roast had to be properly Frenched, tied, and slow-cooked to achieve that juicy, tender texture. But for many home cooks, the challenge was worth the reward. Unfortunately, as home butchering became a lost art and families shifted toward convenience meals, the crown roast started to disappear from dinner tables. Pork belly with cracklings is celebrated for its luxurious flavors and contrasting textures derived from the rich layers of meat and fat found in pork belly. The preparation process starts with scoring the skin and massaging it with a blend of salt, pepper, and aromatic herbs or spices to infuse flavor. The meat is slow roasted at a low temperature to render the fat and tenderize the meat, followed by a blast of high heat to crisp the skin into cracklings. This approach ensures the pork belly stays succulent, while the outer skin turns deliciously crisp. Often served sliced thickly and accompanied by applesauce or a cider reduction, this dish perfectly pairs the pork's richness with a touch of sweet acidity. The allure of pork belly with cracklings lies in the depth of its flavors and the satisfying interplay of tender meat with crispy skin. In the culinary playbook of the 1970s, green beans weren't just a side dish. They were often dressed to impress. Graceful green bean bundles wrapped in smoky bacon and glazed with brown sugar offered an elegant upgrade to the humble vegetable. With their sweet and savory allure, these bundles quickly became a favorite at church potlucks and holiday dinners. The dish's appeal lay in its balance of practicality and flair. Green beans were an accessible and affordable vegetable, while bacon and brown sugar transformed them into something festive. The bundles were easy to assemble and bake, making them a convenient choice for busy cooks. They also served dual purposes. They worked as both a side dish and an appetizer, seamlessly bridging the gap between finger food and a plated meal. By the late 20th century, however, changing tastes and dietary trends began to edge these bundles off the table. The combination of bacon and sugar, once seen as indulgent, started to feel overly rich for everyday fare. Health-conscious cooking also played a role, as lighter vegetable dishes gained popularity. Back in the 1970s, hot dogs were everywhere, at ballparks, backyard cookouts, and school cafeterias. Whether boiled, grilled, or roasted over an open flame, they were an American staple. What few people realized, though, was that those perfectly pink Franks owed their color and long shelf life to a heavy dose of sodium nitrates. These preservatives kept hot dogs looking fresh and safe from bacterial growth, but over time, concerns started sizzling. Nitrates and nitrites were widely used in processed meats, not just for preservation, but also to enhance flavor. The problem? Studies began linking high nitrate consumption to potential cancer risks, particularly due to their conversion into nitrosamines, compounds found to be carcinogenic in lab tests. While no one was dropping their hot dog at the site of a study, health experts started warning against excessive consumption, especially for kids who were already eating them by the dozen. By the late 20th century, regulations tightened, and manufacturers began reducing nitrate levels while introducing uncured options with natural preservatives like celery powder. Today, nitrate-free hot dogs are an alternative, but traditional versions still exist, just with stricter oversight. In the culinary traditions of many German-American communities, sauerkraut held a place of honor, and sacred sauerkraut surprise brought that tangy staple to church potlucks in a way that was both hearty and unexpected. Baked with apples and pork chops, this dish balanced savory, sweet, and sour flavors to create a comforting, satisfying meal that could feed a crowd with ease. The origins of this recipe are deeply rooted in German and Eastern European immigrant cooking. Sauerkraut, a fermented cabbage dish, was prized not only for its flavor, but also for its long shelf life and high vitamin C content, a crucial factor in preserving health during the winter months. Pairing it with pork was a natural choice. Pork chops were affordable and readily available, while apples added a touch of sweetness to offset the kraut's tanginess. This combination was practical, filling, and adaptable to any church dinner or family gathering. Despite its versatility, the dish began to lose favor as modern cooking trends leaned away from fermented and pickled flavors. Additionally, the strong aroma of sauerkraut could be polarizing, making it less appealing to younger generations. Grits and sausage supper was Southern practicality at its finest. Leftover breakfast sausage met creamy grits for a meal that was fast, filling, and deeply satisfying. The grits simmered smooth while the sausage sizzled brown, the two combining into something that felt both rustic and rich. Moms made it when dinner needed to happen quickly, and nobody could bear another sandwich. A pat of butter and a sprinkle of pepper made it perfect, simple as it was. It was comfort that cost almost nothing, spooned into bowls, served hot, and eaten without hurry. The smell of sausage hung in the air, earthy and familiar, reminding everyone that food did not need to be fancy to feel good. It was the kind of meal that filled bellies and quieted rooms. Every bite felt like home, thick with warmth and gratitude. The sound of spoons scraping bowls was steady and soft, a sign that everyone was content. It was food that soothed the spirit, built from the rhythm of routine and the wisdom of making do. Even after long days, it brought a sense of calm to the table, a quiet celebration of enough. Nothing about it was extravagant, yet it carried the dignity of care, proof that love could still be found in the humblest suppers. Veal Prince Orloff is a lavish dish that captures the essence of French-Russian culinary elegance, named after the Russian diplomat Prince Orloff, who resided in France during the 19th century. Created by the renowned French chef Urbain Dubois, it aims to impress with its sophisticated layering and flavors. The dish features slices of roasted veal loin alternated with layers of sautéed mushrooms and onions, with slices of Mornay sauce-enriched eggplant interspersed throughout. It is then crowned with more Mornay sauce, baked until bubbly and golden. This intricate preparation not only showcases the delicate flavors of veal, but also the creamy texture of the Mornay sauce, making it a dish that stands out in both taste and presentation. For decades, this dish was the definition of hearty, home-cooked comfort food, a cross between a hamburger and a meatloaf, Salisbury steak offered all the savory satisfaction of a beefy main course, without the expense of premium cuts. Smothered in a rich mushroom and onion gravy, it was often served alongside mashed potatoes, soaking up every last drop of its flavorful sauce. The origins of this dish date back to the late 19th century when Dr. James Salisbury, a physician, promoted chopped beef as a health food. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that it became a household favorite, especially during the post-war years when ground beef was an affordable, versatile staple. Mixing the meat with breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasonings helped stretch a family's grocery budget, making it a go-to recipe for filling, cost-effective meals. The cooking process was simple yet rewarding. The beef patties were seared to lock in flavor, then simmered slowly in a rich, savory gravy made from beef broth, onions, and mushrooms. The rise of frozen TV dinners turned Salisbury steak into a mass-produced meal, often losing the homemade taste that made it special. Tamale pie is an American dish that brings together the heartiness of ground beef, the comfort of a cornmeal topping, and a blend of savory seasonings that make it a family favorite. While the name might suggest a traditional tamale, tamale pie is actually a casserole that layers these ingredients for a meal that's both satisfying and easy to make. The dish likely has its roots in the Southwest, where tamales have been a staple in Mexican cuisine for centuries. However, tamale pie emerged in the United States in the mid-20th century as a more accessible version, taking the flavors of tamales and turning them into a bake. Ground beef is browned with onions, garlic, and chili powder, then topped with a cornmeal batter and baked until golden. The result is a savory pie with a cornmeal crust that mimics the texture of a tamale. Tamale pie quickly became a favorite for home cooks thanks to its simplicity and versatility. It could be customized with ingredients like cheese, olives, or even jalapenos to suit personal tastes. Some families served it with a side of cornbread or a dollop of sour cream for extra richness. Tamale pie is proof that you don't need a fancy tamale press to make a meal that's full of flavor. Simple, hearty, and always a crowd pleaser. Cornish game hen, a petite and elegant poultry choice, typically weighs no more than 2 pounds and is ideal for serving as an individual portion, making it perfect for an upscale dinner. These hens are usually roasted whole, seasoned lightly with herbs like thyme and sage, and basted in butter to achieve a crispy, golden skin while keeping the meat juicy and tender. The cavity may be stuffed with a flavorful blend of breadcrumbs, chopped vegetables, and herbs, enriching the meat during cooking. The cooking process often involves high-temperature roasting to crisp the skin, followed by a resting period before serving to ensure the meat remains moist. Serving Cornish game hens on a bed of wild rice or alongside roasted vegetables allows their delicate flavors to shine, making them a favored choice for intimate dining and special occasions due to their ideal portion size and visually appealing presentation. Sorrel soup is made from the sorrel plant, known for its tart, lemony flavor. This leafy green was often used in soups and stews, providing a bright, tangy taste that could liven up simple ingredients. Sorrel soup was especially popular in Eastern European and Middle Eastern cuisines, where it was often served with a dollop of cream or a boiled egg. Sorrel itself is a bit of a forgotten green these days, overshadowed by kale, spinach, and other more common leafy vegetables. Sorrel soup hasn't exactly made a splash in the modern culinary scene, but it's still a dish that holds a special place in the hearts of those who grew up with it. It's a refreshing, light soup that's perfect for a spring or summer meal, but it's not something you'll find on many restaurant menus today. Corned beef and cabbage bake was a shortcut to tradition. Instead of boiling all day like the old recipes, this version layered sliced corned beef, cabbage, and diced potatoes in a casserole dish, then baked it until the top crisped and the vegetables softened into sweetness. The smell filled the house, tangy, buttery, and deep. Moms liked it because it kept the heart of the meal without the hours of waiting. The corned beef melted into the cabbage, its salt and spice seasoning everything it touched. It was hearty but light, the kind of dish that could stretch one can of meat to feed 6 plates. It was a modern take on an old comfort, one that fit into the rhythm of work, school, and family. Every forkful tasted like heritage and invention mixed together. the kind of dinner that carried the past into the present. The sound of the oven timer brought everyone to the kitchen, where the air was thick with the scent of pepper and cabbage. Slices of bread waited beside the dish, ready to soak up the juices left behind. Even in its simplicity, it carried pride, a meal that honored what came before while embracing what needed to be done now. It was thrift-turned tradition, baked golden and shared warm. Few dishes spark as much curiosity or debate as a gelatin mold. In the 1970s, the Congregation Carrot Mold combined shredded carrots, crushed pineapple, and orange gelatin into a dish that was both a side and a conversation starter. Sweet, tangy, and slightly crunchy, it blurred the line between salad and dessert, making it a staple at church potlucks where versatility was key. The mid-20th century was the golden age of gelatin-based recipes. With the post-war boom in processed foods, Jell-O became a household name, marketed as the canvas for everything from fruit to vegetables. Carrots and pineapple were a natural pairing, offering a bright color palette and a balance of textures that appealed to adventurous home cooks. The mold's practicality also can't be overlooked. It was easy to make ahead, held its shape on a buffet table, and was affordable for families stretching their budgets. However, as food trends evolved, gelatin molds began to feel outdated. Fresh salads and lighter fare gained popularity, while the sugary sweet combination of carrots and Jell-O started to seem like a culinary relic. For those who remember it, though, this dish evokes a time when creativity reigned supreme and no potluck table was complete without a molded masterpiece. For much of American history, wild game meat wasn't just for hunters, it was for sale. In rural areas, local butchers and roadside markets offered everything from venison to wild rabbit, often sourced straight from the woods. No USDA inspections, no government oversight, just the trust that if a guy in town sold it, it was good. And for many, it was. Fresh, lean, and often cheaper than store-bought beef, wild game was a practical option, especially when grocery store prices climbed. It was prepared just like any other meat. Venison roasts, rabbit stews, fried squirrel, whatever was available, people knew how to cook it. Some families had a deep knowledge of butchering and preserving, passed down for generations. But the problem wasn't always in how it was cooked, it was what might be lurking in the meat before it ever hit the pan. With no inspections, there was no way to guarantee wild game was free from disease, parasites, or contamination. By the late 20th century, regulations cracked down, requiring all commercially sold meat to go through USDA inspection. While personal hunting remains legal, selling wild game without certification is now largely banned. Oven barbecue chicken legs were the sticky glory of weeknight dinners. They started with a pack of drumsticks, cheap, meaty, and always enough for everyone. The sauce came from a bottle, sweet and tangy, sometimes mixed with a splash of vinegar or brown sugar to make it taste homemade. The smell hit first, smoky, sweet, and slow-baked until the sauce turned thick and glossy. The skin crisped just right, caramelizing at the edges while the meat stayed tender underneath. It was a dinner made with no fuss, just trust in the oven's quiet work. The sound of that first bite, the pull of tender chicken against the glaze, was the sound of reward. Moms loved it because it fed many without costing much. It filled bellies, brought people to the table, and left sticky smiles behind. The kind of meal you lick your fingers after, grateful for the simple goodness of it all. The sauce left rings on the plates and napkins, proof of joy and appetite. The leftovers were even better, cold or reheated, eaten standing at the stove the next day. It was the kind of food that asked for nothing more than a paper towel and a moment of peace, the kind every working mother deserved. Scrapple was the typical everything but the oink dish. This Pennsylvania Dutch classic was made from pork scraps. Yes, that includes everything from the snout to the tail, combined with cornmeal and flour, then formed into a loaf. It is also known by the Pennsylvania Dutch name panhaas. Scrapples and panhaas were commonly considered ethnic foods of the Pennsylvania Dutch, including the Mennonites and Amish. Scraps of meat left over from butchering not otherwise used or sold were made into scrapples to avoid waste. It's like your grandma's meatloaf with a whole lot more mystery meat. Scrapple had a love-it-or-hate-it reputation. For some, it was a comfort food that reminded them of home. For others, it was a mysterious meat block they'd rather avoid. It's definitely an acquired taste, one that has not quite made it to mainstream breakfast menus. And don't even get me started on the texture. I'll leave a little to your imagination. Duck à l'orange marries the deep, rich flavors of duck with the sharp zestiness of oranges, a culinary duo dating back to the Renaissance, though it gained popularity in Paris in the early 20th century. This classic dish features roasted duck with a skin crisped to perfection, paired with a sweet and tangy orange sauce made from fresh orange juice, sugar, vinegar, and sometimes Grand Marnier. To perfect duck à l'orange, meticulous attention is paid to rendering the fat from the duck skin, ensuring it crisps up beautifully to contrast with the juicy meat beneath. The sauce is usually prepared separately and reduced to a luscious syrup, then drizzled over the duck just before serving to preserve its bold, vibrant flavors. This dish masterfully balances the rich, natural fat of the duck with the bright, acidic notes of citrus, showcasing refined culinary techniques. Goulash has become a favorite in many American households, a dish that combines the comfort of macaroni with the heartiness of ground beef. Despite the name, this American version of goulash is far different from its Hungarian roots, where the original dish was a rich stew made with beef, paprika, and vegetables. The American version, often made with macaroni, tomatoes, and ground beef, became popular during the mid-20th century, particularly in households looking for a quick, filling, and affordable dinner. The beauty of goulash lies in its simplicity. Ground beef is browned and simmered with onions, garlic, and seasonings, then mixed with cooked macaroni and canned tomatoes. This one-pot meal is easy to make and adaptable to whatever ingredients are on hand, whether it's adding a dash of hot sauce, swapping tomatoes for tomato paste, or stirring in some cheese for extra richness. Goulash quickly became a go-to comfort food for busy families, and it's still a staple today. It's the kind of dish you can throw together in no time, and it always feels like a warm hug in a bowl. Coq au vin stands out as a rich, soul-warming dish that is achieved through a slow cooking process that melds the flavors of chicken and wine thoroughly. Traditionally used to soften tough roosters, modern recipes often utilize chicken, marinated, and then braised in wine, typically red, along with mushrooms, onions, garlic, and a bouquet garni. Initially, the chicken is seared until golden, then simmered slowly with lardons, which infuse a smoky depth. This technique showcases French braising skills, starting with a high sear followed by a gentle, prolonged cooking in a covered pot, allowing the intricate flavors to blend and enhance the meat. The selection of wine is pivotal, forming a flavorful sauce base that deeply seasons the chicken, transforming it into a hearty, deeply satisfying stew that exemplifies rustic yet refined French cooking. Pine needle tea is exactly what it sounds like, tea made from steeped pine needles. This beverage was often consumed for its supposed health benefits, including a high vitamin C content. During times when citrus fruits were scarce or expensive, pine needle tea provided a natural source of this essential nutrient. The flavor of pine needle tea is refreshing and slightly piney, with a hint of citrus. It's not the most conventional tea, but it has a certain rustic charm. However, it's not something you'll find on the shelves of your local tea shop. Pine needle tea is more of a survivalist or herbal remedy than a daily drink. While it hasn't become a mainstream favorite, it's still enjoyed by those who appreciate its unique flavor and natural benefits. Chopped steak with mushroom gravy was ground beef pretending to be fancy and succeeding. Patties formed by hand hit the skillet with a satisfying sizzle, searing brown before being drowned in rich mushroom gravy made from a can. The sauce bubbled thick, coating everything in flavor. It looked like something from a restaurant, but cost less than $5 to make. The smell was indulgent, earthy, and savory, a small luxury after long hours of work. Served with rice or mashed potatoes, it turned dinner into something to savor. The mushrooms added depth, the gravy added comfort, and the beef held it all together. It was proof that care could turn the simplest meal into something special. The sizzling pan filled the air with hope, the sound of something good after something hard. Each bite tasted of pride, the pride of a mother who gave her best even when the world gave little. Families lingered over this meal, savoring its richness and the quiet joy it carried. It was proof that love could wear many flavors, sometimes tender, sometimes strong, but always enough. In the 1970s, practicality often dictated the dinner table, and few dishes embodied that spirit better than a warm, hearty pot of gospel goulash, combining macaroni, ground beef, and tomato sauce. This one-pot wonder was a crowd pleaser at church gatherings and family dinners alike. Simple, filling, and endlessly adaptable, it was the kind of meal that brought everyone to the table without breaking the budget. The dish draws its roots from Hungarian goulash, though the Americanized version took significant creative liberties. By the mid-20th century, macaroni, ground beef, and canned tomato products were affordable staples in nearly every pantry. Families stretched what they had, tossing in whatever vegetables or seasonings were on hand to create a meal that could satisfy both appetites and budgets. Its simplicity made it versatile, easy to scale for a potluck, and forgiving enough for even the most distracted home cooks. Over time, however, gospel goulash began to fade. The rise of more sophisticated pasta dishes, such as lasagna or baked ziti, offered more texture and flavor complexity, pushing this humble dish to the sidelines. As tastes evolved, its one-pot simplicity started to feel less exciting. Still, for many, it remains a nostalgic favorite, a reminder of family dinners, church potlucks, and the ingenuity of making a little go a long way. Canned tuna was cheap, packed with protein, and could be turned into everything from tuna salad sandwiches to casseroles. Families relied on it for quick meals, and no one thought twice about how much they ate. Back then, there were no warning labels, no recommendations to limit consumption, just endless recipes encouraging people to make the most of their pantry supply. But there was a hidden problem. Industrial pollution had been steadily increasing mercury levels in ocean fish, and tuna, being a top predator, was absorbing more than its fair share. By 1970, reports surfaced linking mercury in tuna to potential neurological damage, particularly in pregnant women and young children. The FDA took action, setting limits on mercury levels in fish, but there was no official warning on cans. It wasn't until the early 2000s that the government issued clear guidelines advising consumers, especially expectant mothers, to limit their intake of certain tuna varieties. Despite the concerns, canned tuna never disappeared from store shelves. It's still a go-to meal for millions, but with a little more caution attached. For decades, stuffed bell peppers were a staple of the American dinner table. They were practical, inexpensive, and packed with flavor. Families in the mid-20th century relied on simple, hearty meals, and this dish delivered. With just a few basic ingredients, ground beef, rice, tomatoes, and a well-seasoned filling, home cooks could create a meal that was both satisfying and visually appealing. Peppers were an accessible ingredient, easy to grow in backyard gardens and cheap at the store. Their natural shape made them the perfect edible container, eliminating the need for extra cookware. The filling, often stretched with rice to make the meat go further, was an economical way to feed a large family on a budget. Baked until tender, the peppers absorbed the savory juices, creating a dish that was both rustic and comforting. But as convenience foods took over, stuffed peppers began to fade from dinner rotations. The rise of prepackaged meals and fast food options meant fewer people were willing to spend time hollowing out peppers and slow-baking a homemade filling. Today, the dish still makes an occasional appearance in nostalgic cookbooks, but it's no longer a household staple. So, cornmeal mush was the humble, comforting porridge made from, surprise, cornmeal. It became all the rage in the eastern and southeastern United States, and people in the Midwestern states ate it with maple syrup or molasses. In Eastern Europe, milk was poured over the meal once served and cooled down, rather than being boiled in it. Imagine a bowl of yellow, gluey goop that your grandma would call comfort food. Don't get me wrong, I love a good, hearty bowl of oatmeal, but cornmeal mush? That's a whole different level of bland. Apparently, people used to fry it up for breakfast. I mean, I guess it's a way to add some crunch to your mushy morning meal. This dish was a staple in many households during hard times because it was cheap, filling, and versatile. However, in today's world of avocado toast and acai bowls, cornmeal mush just doesn't stand a chance. Beef and barley soup was a working woman's patience in a pot. It started early, with tough cuts of beef browned slow, onions and carrots sizzling until they softened, and barley sprinkled in to thicken everything with heartiness. The smell drifted through the house all afternoon, a sign that something was waiting at the end of the day. It was the kind of meal that didn't need tending, just trust. The kind that simmered quietly while laundry dried and homework got done. By dinner, the broth was deep and rich, the barley plump, the beef tender enough to fall apart with a spoon. It was nutrition dressed as nostalgia, proof that time could turn cheap cuts into something almost luxurious. Moms made it not for praise, but for peace, to warm everyone from the inside out. It was the kind of soup that could cure almost anything a long day brought. The pot itself seemed to hum with warmth, each bubble carrying the smell of comfort. Bread might have been stale, but dipped in that broth, it tasted new again. Every bowl came with seconds, and every refill came with thanks. This was love slow-cooked, ladled gently, and served with pride, the quiet kind that asked for nothing back. In the era of resourceful cooking, few desserts embodied practicality quite like a fruit cobbler made with canned fruit cocktail and a biscuit crust. Fellowship Fruit Cobbler was a mainstay at church potlucks, offering a sweet, bubbling dessert that could feed a crowd with minimal effort. The dish gained traction in the mid-20th century, when canned fruit cocktail became a pantry staple in American homes. A product of clever marketing and food preservation innovation, Fruit Cocktail offered a colorful mix of diced fruits that made desserts feel festive. Topping it with a simple biscuit crust not only stretched the dish but gave it that golden, flaky finish that felt homemade even when shortcuts were taken. As versatile as it was, the cobbler started losing its shine by the late 20th century. Fresh fruits became more accessible year-round, and modern palates leaned toward desserts with more nuanced flavors and textures. Canned fruit cocktail, once a novelty, began to feel dated. But for those who grew up with it, this cobbler remains a comforting reminder of shared meals, church fellowship halls, and a time when food was about bringing people together, not about impressing them with gourmet flair. By the 1970s, the diet food industry was booming. With calorie counting in full swing, people were looking for ways to satisfy their sweet tooth without the guilt. Saccharin became the answer. Found in everything from diet sodas to sugar-free desserts, it was a game changer. Hundreds of times sweeter than sugar, yet with none of the calories. It didn't taste exactly like sugar, but for those determined to stay slim, it was close enough. Saccharin had actually been around since the late 1800s, but it wasn't until the mid-20th century that it took over the diet market. People stirred it into their coffee, poured it over cereal, and downed it in soft drinks like Tab. It was everywhere, until scientists started raising concerns. In the early 1970s, studies linked saccharin to bladder cancer in lab rats, setting off alarm bells. The FDA responded by mandating warning labels on products containing the sweetener, effectively scaring off a lot of consumers. Despite the controversy, saccharin never fully disappeared. Later research suggested the rat studies didn't translate directly to humans, and by 2000, the cancer warning was removed. Today, it's still around, though it competes with newer artificial sweeteners. Back then, though, it was the diet craze's best friend, until it wasn't. Before slow cookers and instant meals, there was fricassee, a dish that turned simple ingredients into something extraordinary. This creamy chicken stew had roots in European cooking, but became a homecoming dinner favorite in American kitchens, especially in the South and Midwest. It was rich, comforting, and made the most of what was available. Chicken fricassee was the perfect example of resourceful cooking. In the days when whole chickens were bought instead of pre-cut parts, every bit was used. The meat was gently simmered in a velvety sauce made from broth, butter, and cream, creating a dish that felt indulgent without being expensive. Paired with dumplings or rice, it was a filling meal that stretched to feed a crowd. What made fricassee special was its balance between rustic and refined. Unlike fried or roasted chicken, this method kept the meat exceptionally tender, absorbing the sauce's deep flavors. Some families added carrots and peas, while others preferred a touch of sherry for extra depth. But no matter the variation, it was a dish meant to be ladled generously and served with warm, crusty bread. So why did it disappear? As boneless, skinless chicken breasts became the norm, slow-cooked dishes like this fell out of favor. Pork chops with scalloped potatoes was a duo so perfectly matched, it's as if they were destined to share the same plate. This meal became a dinnertime favorite for its balance of simplicity and satisfaction. Tender, pan-seared pork chops alongside creamy, cheesy potatoes. It's no wonder it earned its spot in the hearts and stomachs of families everywhere. The secret to scalloped potatoes lies in their layers. Thinly sliced potatoes are smothered in a rich, velvety sauce made from milk or cream, often with a touch of cheese, and baked until golden and bubbling. The dish likely evolved from French gratin dauphinois, but American cooks put their own spin on it by using cheese more liberally. Pork chops, on the other hand, have always been a practical choice for home cooks. Affordable and quick to prepare, they pair perfectly with the creamy potatoes, creating a meal that's hearty yet approachable. To many, the crispy edges of the potatoes and the seared crust on the pork chops were the best part. This meal is like a warm hug in casserole form. The only downside is that it's impossible to stop at just one serving. And really, who would want to? Few side dishes could bridge the gap between savory and sweet as effortlessly as corn pudding. A staple of Southern and Midwestern homecoming dinners, this dish combined farm-fresh simplicity with a rich, custard-like texture. Families often served it alongside roasted meats or holiday spreads, where its golden hue and delicate sweetness made it a comforting favorite. Whether fresh off the cob in the summer or canned in colder months, it was inexpensive and widely available. This recipe used basic pantry staples, butter, milk, eggs, and a touch of sugar, to create a dish that felt indulgent, despite its humble ingredients. Baking was the preferred method, allowing the custard to set while keeping the kernels tender. Some families swore by a cast-iron skillet, while others used deep casserole dishes to achieve that perfect golden crust. Recipes varied. Some included a splash of vanilla, others added a pinch of nutmeg. But the result was always a creamy, spoonable side that paired with almost anything. As processed cornbread mixes and quick-fix alternatives took over, traditional corn pudding was left behind. But for those who remember its warm, velvety bite, it's a dish worth bringing back. Chicken Marengo holds a storied place in culinary history, famously prepared for Napoleon after the Battle of Marengo. This dish encapsulates the essence of victorious improvisation using local ingredients available at the time. Chicken Marengo starts with chicken pieces sautéed in olive oil, braised with onions, garlic, and tomatoes, enriched by a splash of white wine that deglazes the pan, forming a robust sauce. Later additions often include mushrooms, and traditionally, it was garnished with fried eggs and crayfish, though these are less common today. The slow simmering melds all the flavors beautifully, allowing the tomatoes to break down and create a rich, savory sauce that complements the tender chicken perfectly. This dish exemplifies French provincial cooking, utilizing straightforward techniques and local ingredients to produce a dish rich in history and flavor. Canned salmon patties were the ocean's answer to tight budgets. The can opener clicked, the fish flaked apart, and with an egg, a bit of onion, and crushed crackers, dinner took shape. Each patty hit the hot skillet with a sizzle, turning golden and crisp at the edges. The smell was rich and savory, the kind of aroma that promised something satisfying even before the first bite. Served with mashed potatoes and peas, it made a plate that looked like comfort itself. The outside was crunchy, the inside soft and tender, holding just enough salt to remind you of the sea. It was the kind of meal that didn't need explaining. Everyone just knew it would be good. Moms loved how fast it came together, how far one can could go. The leftovers, if there were any, made fine sandwiches the next day. It was proof that thrift could taste elegant when cooked with care. The rich, spicy aroma of a well-seasoned casserole was often the highlight of church potlucks, and Jubilee Jambalaya casserole was no exception. This baked version of the Louisiana classic brought together rice, sausage, shrimp, and a bold Creole spice blend. It was hearty, flavorful, and had just the right amount of kick to leave everyone asking for the recipe. Jambalaya, with its roots in Spanish, French, and African culinary traditions, became a staple in Southern cooking centuries ago. Its adaptability made it a natural fit for church gatherings in the 1970s. Stretching expensive ingredients like shrimp with affordable staples like rice was economical, and baking it in a casserole dish made it easy to transport and serve to a crowd. Sausage added depth, and the Creole seasoning brought a vibrancy that elevated the dish beyond your average casserole. So why don't we see it much anymore? As jambalaya purists reclaimed the stovetop tradition, the baked casserole version began to lose its charm. Add in the rise of quicker meal solutions, and the labor-intensive nature of the dish didn't fit modern schedules. By the 1970s, margarine had secured its place as the healthier alternative to butter. It was cheaper, lasted longer, and, thanks to trans fats, stayed solid at room temperature while giving baked goods that perfect flakiness. Fast food chains and restaurants took full advantage, using partially hydrogenated oils for frying everything from French fries to fried chicken. The result? Crispy, golden perfection with a long shelf life. But what seemed like a miracle ingredient turned out to be a silent killer. Trans fats raised bad cholesterol, lowered good cholesterol, and increased the risk of heart disease, without people even realizing it. For decades, the food industry brushed off concerns, marketing margarine as a healthier alternative while deep fryers across America sizzled with heart-clogging oils. The science was catching up, though, and by the early 2000s, studies confirmed what researchers had suspected for years. Trans fats were among the worst fats you could consume. Regulations followed, and by 2015, the FDA officially declared trans fats unsafe. Companies scrambled to reformulate products, and today, margarine isn't what it used to be. While fried food never went out of style, the days of trans fat-loaded cooking oils are over. Scalloped ham and potatoes, a classic dish that brings together two of the most beloved comfort foods, tender ham and creamy, cheesy potatoes. This casserole has been a staple at family gatherings and Sunday dinners for generations, proving that simple ingredients can create something extraordinary. The dish's origins can be traced back to the mid-19th century, where scalloped potatoes, sliced potatoes baked in a rich, creamy sauce, became a popular sign. The addition of ham likely came later, as cooks sought to stretch their budget by incorporating leftover meats. The result was a filling, satisfying dish that combined the savory goodness of ham with the comforting texture of potatoes. Scalloped ham and potatoes became even more popular in the 20th century when convenience foods like canned soups and processed cheese made their way into American kitchens. The creamy sauce, often made from a blend of milk, butter, and cheese, is what binds the layers of ham and potatoes, creating a hearty casserole that's easy to make but feels like a special meal. Scalloped ham and potatoes is the ultimate use-it-all dish, because who doesn't love a meal where everything gets smothered in cheese? It's a dish that's perfect for feeding a crowd and always leaves everyone asking for seconds. Turkey and rice skillet was a weeknight lifesaver, the kind of dinner that could appear from almost nothing. It began with bits of leftover turkey, chopped fine and browned in a single pan with a handful of frozen vegetables, peas, carrots, corn, whatever was on hand. A scoop of rice went in next, soaking up every bit of flavor as it simmered with a little broth. The scent was soft and homey, the kind that filled the kitchen with quiet reassurance. Nothing about it was fancy, but everything about it worked. Moms leaned on it when time was short and energy was low, knowing it could feed a family for pennies. The rice puffed up tender, the vegetables brightened with salt and butter, and the turkey gave just enough richness to make it feel complete. It was balance in a skillet, light but satisfying, simple but full of heart. Some added soy sauce or onion powder to stretch its flavor, Others kept it plain, letting the rice and turkey speak for themselves. It tasted like peace after a long day, proof that even the most ordinary ingredients could make something wonderful when stirred with love. In the heyday of retro desserts, Charity Cherry Salad was a shining star at potlucks and family gatherings. This chilled dish combined bright maraschino cherries, velvety cream cheese, and fluffy whipped topping, creating a dessert that was as vibrant as it was indulgent. Served in elegant glass bowls or set in decorative molds, it added a touch of flair to any church supper table. The popularity of dishes like this can be traced back to the mid-20th century, when refrigeration revolutionized home cooking. Desserts that could be prepared ahead of time and served cold became the ultimate convenience for busy homemakers. Maraschino cherries, first commercialized in the early 1900s, were a pantry favorite thanks to their long shelf life and striking red color. Blending them with cream cheese and whipped topping was a clever way to create a dessert that felt rich but remained affordable. Despite its charm, Charity Cherry Salad fell out of fashion as modern palates shifted away from overly sweet processed ingredients. The rise of fresh fruit salads and lighter desserts in the late 20th century further sealed its fate. Mornings in the 1970s often started the same way. Parents sipping their coffee, kids getting ready for school, and, in many households, children drinking coffee right alongside the adults. It wasn't unusual. In fact, in some families it was encouraged, especially in certain cultural traditions where a little coffee with milk and sugar was considered perfectly fine for young ones. Some parents even believed it helped build character or made kids feel more grown up. Coffee for kids wasn't just about the caffeine, it was part of breakfast. Some children dunked their toast into it, while others drank a watered-down version, often loaded with sugar. It wasn't uncommon for grandparents to pour a little into a toddler's bottle, swearing it would keep them calm, an idea that hasn't exactly aged well. But as health studies evolved, concerns over caffeine's effects on developing bodies became harder to ignore. Doctors warned that regular consumption could stunt growth, interfere with sleep, and even lead to increased heart rates. While coffee itself was never banned for kids, the cultural norm slowly faded. Today, it's more likely to raise eyebrows than fill sippy cups. But back then, a cup of joe before school wasn't shocking. It was just part of growing up, one jittery sip at a time. Egg noodle stroganoff without beef was the creative fix for lean weeks. Mushrooms and onions replaced the meat, sautéed slow until golden before being folded into sour cream and broth. The noodles were cooked soft, catching every bit of sauce in their curls. It was creamy and comforting, a dish that felt indulgent even when it was born of necessity. The kitchen smelled rich, the kind of scent that made kids run to the table. It filled plates generously and hearts quietly. Moms took pride in this kind of invention, in turning limits into flavor. It was food that told the truth, that care was the main ingredient all along. The sauce shimmered as it cooled, clinging to the noodles like a small luxury. It was a dinner that reminded families that grace could be found in doing your best with what you had. Some added a pinch of paprika or a splash of milk to stretch the sauce. Others simply trusted the pan. No one left hungry, and that was all that mattered. Potted meat is a canned meat product that was a staple in many households during tough times. Made from a mix of meats, including beef and pork, it's ground into a paste and seasoned. It's often used as a spread on crackers or bread, making it a quick and easy snack or meal component. Potted meat has a long shelf life, which makes it perfect for stocking pantries during uncertain times. It's not exactly gourmet fare, but it got the job done. However, in today's era of fresh whole foods, potted meat has fallen out of favor. It's the kind of thing you might find in a survival kit or on a camping trip, but not something you'd serve at a dinner party. Still, for those who grew up with it, potted meat holds a special place in the pantry of memories. Named in honor of the Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini, chicken tetrazzini was reportedly whipped up by chef Ernest Arbogast at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco around the early 1900s. This dish, a testament to American culinary creativity, combines diced chicken and mushrooms with linguine or spaghetti in a sumptuous, creamy sauce that's often elevated with a splash of wine or sherry. Once assembled, it's liberally topped with grated Parmesan and baked until a golden crust forms on top. The addition of sherry or wine doesn't only boost the flavor, it also cuts through the cream's richness with its acidity. Typically, this dish is finished with a sprinkle of parsley or paprika to boost its visual appeal and add layers of subtle flavor. Despite its straightforward ingredients, chicken tetrazzini welcomes variations, such as almonds or pimentos, enhancing both its taste and texture. It's not just a delicious meal, but also a smart way to repurpose leftover chicken or turkey. For families stretching their grocery budget, few meals delivered as much flavor and comfort as these unusual-looking meatballs. A product of the Great Depression and wartime rationing, porcupine meatballs were a creative way to make ground beef go further. Mixing rice into the meat wasn't just for texture, it bulked up the meal, making a pound of beef feed more mouths. Rice was an affordable pantry staple, and when the meatballs simmered in a tangy tomato sauce, the grains softened and expanded, giving them their signature spiky appearance. Despite the name, no porcupines were harmed in the making of this dish. Just a bit of kitchen ingenuity at work. Some recipes used canned tomato soup for a mild, creamy sauce, while others relied on crushed tomatoes and Worcestershire sauce for a sharper kick. Either way, the slow cooking process allowed the flavors to meld into a hearty, stick-to-your-ribs meal. For decades, this dish was a go-to for busy home cooks. It was easy, required minimal ingredients, and could be made in one pot, ideal for feeding a growing family. But as convenience foods and pre-made meatballs filled grocery store freezers, the homemade version started to disappear. Steamed clams, a beloved dish especially along the coasts of New England, have been enjoyed for generations. This dish is a true celebration of seafood, as fresh clams are steamed until tender, absorbing all the flavors of the broth, often seasoned with garlic, herbs, and a splash of white wine or broth. Clams, which are bivalve mollusks, have been a staple in coastal cuisine for centuries, with Native Americans harvesting them long before European settlers arrived. The joy of eating steamed clams comes from their delicate texture and briny sweetness. The perfect clam should pop open easily when steamed, a sign that it's cooked just right. Paired with a slice of hearty brown bread and a dollop of butter, this dish becomes a complete, satisfying meal. The richness of the butter and the rustic flavor of the brown bread perfectly complement the clam's natural saltiness, creating a balanced, indulgent experience. Steamed clams with brown bread, because sometimes the best meals are the ones that come with their own dipping sauce. The dish reflects the simplicity of coastal living, proving that the freshest ingredients often make the most memorable meals. Whether served as an appetizer or a main course, steamed clams with brown bread and butter remain a timeless favorite, offering a taste of the sea with every bite. Some of the best dishes come from necessity, and few ingredients are as dependable as potatoes. For generations, scalloped potatoes were a staple at homecoming dinners, potlucks, and Sunday feasts. Thinly sliced and baked in a rich, velvety sauce, they were a testament to the idea that simple ingredients, when treated right, could feel downright luxurious. Potatoes were the backbone of many American kitchens. They were cheap, easy to store, and could feed an entire family without much effort. The addition of a creamy sauce, made from milk, butter, and a touch of garlic, elevated this humble dish into something special. Some versions kept it simple, while others included layers of cheese, turning it into a gooey, golden masterpiece. Either way, it was a comforting, belly-filling side that paired well with just about any main course. The cooking process required patience. Proper scalloped potatoes weren't rushed. Each layer had to absorb the sauce, and the top needed time to develop that perfect golden crust. But as boxed potato mixes and instant gratins took over, homemade scalloped potatoes started to fade from dinner tables. Galantine of chicken is a testament to the elaborate artistry of classical French cuisine, popularized in the 17th century. It involves a meticulous process where a whole chicken is deboned and stuffed with a seasoned mix of ground meat, fats, and spices, including luxurious touches like pistachios and truffles. The chicken is then encased back within its skin, poached in a flavorful stock and set to cool, often in the gelatin-rich cooking liquid, to form a jelly. Decorated with artistic slices of vegetables, herbs, or edible flowers and coated in a glistening aspic, galantine is served cold, making it a striking centerpiece for buffets and banquets. This dish not only showcases the culinary craftsmanship of detailed butchery and seasoning, but also the aesthetic presentation. Sausage and cabbage skillet was the one-pan wonder that turned thrift into art. A single link of sausage, sliced thin, met a pile of cabbage that wilted down into tenderness, flavored by onions and a touch of pepper. The smell was sharp, smoky, and comforting all at once. It cooked fast but tasted slow, the kind of dish that tasted better than it had any right to. Moms liked it because it stretched what little meat they had into a meal that could fill everyone's plate. The cabbage soaked up all the flavor, and the sausage gave it heart. It was the definition of economy. No waste, no rush, just a skillet and a bit of love. Steam filled the kitchen windows, and the air felt alive. This dish proved that patience and seasoning could make miracles from scraps. Every bite carried pride, and every pan told a story of strength. Few desserts carry the warmth of tradition quite like a baked custard rice pudding. Reverent rice pudding was a staple at church gatherings, offering creamy comfort with a touch of cinnamon spice and the sweetness of raisins. It was the kind of dish that felt like home, evoking memories of simpler times when nothing in the pantry went to waste. Rice pudding's history stretches back centuries, with variations found in nearly every culture that had access to rice and milk. In the United States, it gained popularity during the 19th century, when rice became widely available and recipes emphasized frugality. By the 1970s, baked versions with eggs, milk, and sugar added a custardy richness, while cinnamon and raisins gave it a warm, familiar flavor. It was versatile, too, served as a dessert, a snack, or even a breakfast dish. But as dessert trends shifted in the late 20th century, rice pudding began to fade. Its humble simplicity couldn't compete with the rise of more decadent sweets like chocolate lava cakes or the colorful allure of gelatin desserts. The time-intensive baking process also made it less appealing in an era of quick fixes. Grocery shopping in the 1970s came with a little more mystery than most people realized, especially at the butcher counter. While shoppers expected to get ground beef, hot dogs, or sausage, what they didn't always know was that those meats often contained organ meats like heart, liver, or tongue, blended right in without any clear labeling. It wasn't considered deceptive, it was just how things were done. Waste not, want not. Organ meats had been a staple in traditional cooking for centuries. They were nutrient-dense, packed with iron and vitamins, and most importantly, cheap. For meat processors, using every part of the animal made economic sense. Instead of tossing organ cuts aside, they were mixed into processed meats to add volume and keep costs down. Some people had no issue with it. After all, dishes like liver and onions were common. But others had no idea what they were eating. By the late 20th century, food regulations tightened, and full disclosure became mandatory. Labels had to clearly state what was inside, and consumers got a better understanding of what was actually in their meat. There was a time when meatloaf was a household tradition. Made from simple, inexpensive ingredients, it was a staple of weeknight dinners and homecoming feasts alike. But what made this version special was the glaze, a perfectly balanced mix of ketchup and brown sugar that caramelized into a sticky, flavorful coating as it baked. Ground beef was one of the most affordable proteins, and by mixing it with breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasonings, home cooks could stretch a single pound to feed an entire family. Some variations included oats or crushed crackers, while others relied on Worcestershire sauce and mustard for added depth. But the secret weapon was always the glaze, a blend of sweet and tangy flavors that sealed in moisture and gave the loaf its signature glossy finish. So why did this dish start disappearing from dinner tables? As dietary trends shifted, meatloaf's reputation took a hit. Low-carb diets, leaner meat choices, and a move away from home-cooked comfort foods made it less popular. Pre-made frozen meatloaves also contributed, offering convenience at the cost of homemade flavor. Lamb shanks epitomize the rich flavors and tender textures celebrated in Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cuisines. Prized for their gelatin-rich connective tissue, Lamb shanks transform through slow cooking into melt-in-your-mouth tenderness. The preparation starts with searing the shanks to a golden brown, locking in flavors through caramelization, then braising them slowly in a mix of wine, stock, and aromatics like onions, carrots, and celery, enhanced with herbs such as rosemary and thyme. This method not only tenderizes the meat, but also infuses it with a robust blend of flavors. Typically, the dish is finished with a sprinkle of gremolata, adding a fresh burst of lemon, garlic, and parsley that cuts through the richness. The braised liquid serves as a deeply flavored sauce, reduced to intensify its taste, complementing the richness of the lamb with a perfect balance of flavors. Fatback. Just the name sounds delicious, right? Wrong. Fatback is basically just a slab of pure pig fat. This cut of pork was often used to flavor dishes or rendered into lard for cooking. In times of scarcity, fatback was a valuable ingredient because it added flavor and richness to otherwise bland meals. You could fry it up to make crispy bits or use the rendered fat for cooking just about anything. Fatback is the unsung hero of many Southern dishes, providing that extra bit of flavor that makes everything taste better. However, in today's world of lean meats and health-conscious eating, fatback hasn't quite kept up. It's the kind of thing that makes dietitians shudder, but still holds a nostalgic place in the hearts of many. While it's not as popular as it once was, fatback remains a key ingredient in traditional Southern cooking, and for good reason, it's delicious. Chicken fricassee was elegance on a dime, a creamy stovetop stew that made the kitchen smell like Sunday even on a Tuesday. Bone-in chicken simmered slow in a white sauce made from broth, flour, and a touch of milk until it turned velvety smooth. Carrots and peas joined in, bright against the pale gravy, filling the pot with color and comfort. The sauce thickened as it cooked, clinging to every piece of chicken until it looked like something straight out of a cookbook. But this was not luxury. This was love disguised as dinner. Moms learned to stretch every bit of flavor, using what they had to make something that tasted rich. The steam fogged the windows, the wooden spoon moved slow, and the smell said everything that words could not. It was the kind of meal that made you stop and breathe before taking that first bite. Back in the 1960s and 70s, diet sodas were all the rage. Companies were racing to deliver sugar-free drinks that actually tasted good, and one of their secret weapons was cyclamate. Found in brands like Tab and Diet Pepsi, this artificial sweetener was 30 to 50 times sweeter than sugar, meaning just a tiny amount could make a soda taste refreshingly sweet without the calories. It was cheap too, making it a favorite for manufacturers eager to cash in on the booming diet craze. Cyclamate-sweetened drinks were practically a lifestyle. People who wanted to cut calories but still enjoy a fizzy treat stocked their fridges with them. You'd see slim cans of Diet Right or No-Cal sitting next to casseroles and TV dinners, ready to be cracked open with a satisfying hiss. It was the go-to drink for weight-conscious Americans, and many swore it tasted better than the saccharin-based alternatives. But by 1969, the party was over. After studies linked cyclamate to bladder cancer in lab rats, the FDA swiftly banned it. The science was debated for years. Many argued the amounts tested were excessive, but the ban stayed. Few desserts capture the retro charm of the mid-20th century like the pineapple upside-down cake. Its signature design, caramelized pineapple slices and bright red maraschino cherries embedded in a golden cake, made it as visually striking as it was delicious. Praise pineapple. Upside-down cake was more than just a dessert. It was a conversation piece at church potlucks and community dinners. The dish rose to popularity in the 1920s and 1930s thanks to the invention of canned pineapple by the Hawaiian Pineapple Company. Their marketing campaigns promoted recipes featuring pineapple, and the upside-down cake, with its sweet, sticky topping, became an instant hit. By the 1950s and 60s, it had become a potluck classic, celebrated for its simplicity, just one pan, and its ability to turn everyday ingredients into a dessert that felt festive. As tastes evolved in the late 20th century, the cake began to lose its luster. The heavy use of canned ingredients and its sugary glaze didn't align with the growing emphasis on fresh, lighter desserts. Additionally, its iconic appearance became a symbol of an earlier era, less appealing to younger bakers seeking more modern flavors and aesthetics. No dish says Sunday dinner like a pot roast simmering away, filling the house with the unmistakable aroma of comfort. Pot roast was an event, the centerpiece of countless family gatherings. Originating in France, pot au feu inspired what we now call pot roast, combining tougher cuts of beef with slow cooking to create something tender and flavorful. In America, the pot roast became a household favorite thanks to its practicality. Chuck roast, brisket, or round, these cuts weren't fancy, but with the magic of a Dutch oven or slow cooker, they transformed into melt-in-your-mouth perfection. Carrots, potatoes, and onions balanced the rich beef with earthy sweetness and hearty texture. The beauty of pot roast is its patience. It doesn't demand attention, just time. It's a dish that rewards you for slowing down, a rarity in today's grab-and-go world. As one home cook joked, it's the only dish that cooks itself while you're watching Sunday football. And we shall not forget the gravy, a pot roast's crowning glory. Thickened with pan drippings, it's the glue that holds this masterpiece together. If love had a flavor, pot roast might just be it. Okay, if you have a light stomach, this next one's not for you. Chicken feet. You heard that right? Now, we're getting into some real survival food territory. Chicken feet might sound like a strange choice for a meal, but in many cultures, they're considered a delicacy. These little feet are often used to make rich, flavorful broths and soups. The high collagen content gives the broth a silky texture that's perfect for sipping on a cold day. However, chicken feet aren't exactly the most popular menu item in the West, or at least anymore. They were big back when people had to eat whatever they could find, like the tough days of the Great Depression. But in today's modern world, chicken feet are a big no thank you. They're a bit bony and can be a challenge to eat, which might be why they haven't caught on like, say, chicken wings. But for those in the know, they're a tasty, nutrient-rich part of the chicken that's worth trying at least once. Just don't expect to see them in your local fast food chain anytime soon. Barbecue bean casserole with ground beef was weeknight barbecue without the grill. It began with baked beans and browned beef, stirred together with a swirl of barbecue sauce until everything gleamed. The oven baked it until the edges caramelized, the sauce thickened, and the smell spread through the house. It was smoky, sweet, and filling, the kind of food that made you close your eyes for a second after the first bite. Served with soft white bread or a scoop of slaw, it fed everyone for pennies. The beans stayed tender, the beef turned deep and savory, and the sauce tied it all together with a tang that lingered. Moms knew it was foolproof, the perfect dump-and-bake dinner that always hit the spot. It was a small celebration of thrift, a little smoky joy after long days. The way the sauce bubbled around the edges made the house feel alive, as if laughter itself had taken form in the oven. It was sticky, sweet, and satisfying in the truest sense, not elegant, but honest. Families lingered at the table longer after this meal, soaking bread in the last bits of sauce, unwilling to let the warmth fade too quickly. Baked apple desserts have long been a staple of American cooking, and Alter Apple Betty was a quintessential example of turning humble ingredients into something extraordinary. Made with sliced apples, a fragrant cinnamon-spiced oat topping, and brown sugar for sweetness, this dish was a warm, rustic treat that often graced church potluck tables and family dinners alike. Its roots can be traced back to colonial America, where frugal cooks used seasonal fruits and pantry staples to create desserts that didn't require elaborate preparation. The beauty of Apple Betty was its simplicity. No pie crust to fuss over, just a quick assembly of apples and a crumbly topping that baked to golden perfection. It was versatile, too, ideal as a dessert, a sweet breakfast, or even a snack when served cold. So why isn't it as common today? As dessert trends shifted, Apple Betty faced stiff competition from flashier options like pies, cobblers, and crisps. The recipe's old-fashioned simplicity, once a selling point, became overshadowed by desserts that promised more indulgence or visual appeal. Alter Apple. Betty remains a nostalgic reminder of kitchens where everything was made from scratch and desserts were heartfelt contributions to the table. Dinner parties in the 1970s had one dish that seemed to defy logic: the savory Jell-O mold. A wobbly tower of gelatin, often packed with processed meats, canned vegetables, and a suspiciously artificial glow, it was a centerpiece of many tables. Whether it was ham and lime gelatin, chicken suspended in tomato aspic, or a seafood salad encased in lemon-flavored Jell-O, this culinary oddity was both a conversation starter and, for some, a challenge to eat. Jell-O molds had been around for decades, but after World War II, food companies aggressively marketed them as an easy, elegant way to serve meals. Housewives clipped recipes from magazines, creating gelatin-packed creations filled with everything from olives to pimentos. Processed meats like Spam or bologna often found their way into the mix, held together by gelatin and thickened with mayonnaise. It was a product of its time, efficient, visually striking, and heavy on artificial additives like food dyes and stabilizers. As food safety and nutrition research evolved, concerns over processed meats, excessive artificial ingredients, and sodium levels grew. By the 1980s, the popularity of savory gelatin dishes faded. Today, they're more of a retro curiosity than a dinner staple. A true testament to how simple ingredients can create something extraordinary, corn pudding casserole with a sweet custard base is a comforting classic. With its rich, custardy texture and subtle sweetness, it's a comforting side that's just as at home at Thanksgiving as it is at a Sunday family dinner. Corn pudding has roots in early American cooking, influenced by Native American corn-based dishes like succotash. However, the casserole version, often made with a combination of cornmeal, eggs, milk, and sugar, emerged in the 19th century as settlers began adapting recipes to make use of what was readily available. The sweet custard base, made with eggs and cream or milk, gives the dish its signature smooth, slightly sweet texture that contrasts perfectly with the corn kernels. It's also a dish that evolved with convenience in mind. As canned creamed corn became widely available in the mid-20th century, many home cooks began using it to simplify preparation without sacrificing flavor. Corn pudding is a crowd pleaser, and its versatility allows for adjustments. Some might add a touch of cheese, while others prefer to keep it pure. There was a time when Sunday dinner wasn't complete without a plate of slow-cooked, gravy-drenched pork chops. Smothered in rich, savory onion gravy and served alongside a heaping portion of mashed potatoes, this dish was a cornerstone of Southern home cooking. It was an experience, one that filled the kitchen with the unmistakable aroma of comfort. Pork was an affordable alternative to beef, making it a practical choice for families looking to stretch their grocery budget. Bone-in chops were particularly popular, as they were both flavorful and inexpensive. The slow cooking process allowed even the toughest cuts to become fork tender, absorbing the deep, savory notes of the seasoned gravy. Some cooks swore by a cast-iron skillet, while others let the dish simmer in a slow cooker for hours, ensuring the pork melted in your mouth. But as convenience foods and boneless, skinless meats took over the supermarket, this dish began to disappear. Quick-fix dinners replaced slow-simmered meals, and thick homemade gravies gave way to powdered mixes and canned alternatives. Today, smothered pork chops are a rare sight at the dinner table, but for those who remember the first bite of a perfectly tender chop covered in rich, peppery gravy, it's a dish worth revisiting. Crown roast of lamb is an exquisite dish often reserved for special occasions and holiday feasts. This majestic preparation involves arranging racks of lamb into a circular shape that resembles a crown, with ribs pointing skyward. It's seasoned with a mix of rosemary, garlic, and thyme, both in the marinade and as a rub applied before roasting. To enhance its flavor and retain moisture, the crown center is typically filled with a stuffing composed of breadcrumbs, minced garlic, herbs, and occasionally dried fruits like apricots or cranberries. The lamb is roasted until it achieves a tender texture and a beautifully browned exterior. Precision in tying the racks together ensures the roast cooks evenly. To perfect its presentation, chefs often cover the tips of the ribs with foil during roasting to prevent charring. This dish not only dazzles as a culinary delight, but also stands as a festive centerpiece, symbolizing celebration and feasting. Klabber is soured milk that was often used in baking or eaten as a spread with sugar or fruit. Before the days of refrigeration, Klabber was a common way to use up milk that had started to sour. The natural bacteria in the milk would ferment it, creating a thick, yogurt-like consistency. Klabber might sound a bit strange to modern ears, but it was a staple in many households. It's similar to yogurt or buttermilk, both of which are still popular today. However, Klabber itself has fallen out of favor, likely due to its strong, tangy flavor and the modern preference for fresher dairy products. It's a reminder of a time when people made use of every bit of food they had. Hardtack, also known as ship's biscuit, is a simple, hard biscuit made from flour and water. It was a staple for sailors, soldiers, and pioneers because it had a long shelf life and was easy to transport. The downside? It was so hard that it could break your teeth if you weren't careful. Turkey pot pie with biscuit topping was the warmest kind of thrift. Leftover turkey, peas, and carrots swam in creamy gravy beneath a golden crust of drop biscuits. It came from the hands of mothers who knew how to make one meal become two, maybe three. The oven turned the house into a bakery, filling it with the scent of butter and broth. When the spoon broke through the crust, steam rose up like memory. Each bite was soft, savory, and full of gratitude. It was food made for togetherness, for laughter between bites, for quiet seconds before bedtime. The flaky biscuits soaked up the gravy like sponges, making every taste better than the last. It was proof that the best meals were born not from plenty, but from purpose. The clatter of plates, the scrape of spoons, the sighs after second helpings, all of it felt like love taking form. Every bite carried effort, every crumb a piece of care. In the quiet after dinner, moms wiped the counter, knowing they had done enough. It was comfort sealed in crust, a reminder that joy could be baked from what was left behind. In the mid-20th century, prunes enjoyed a moment in the culinary spotlight, and desserts like Prune Whip became surprisingly popular at gatherings. Light, airy, and subtly sweet, this dish combined stewed prunes with whipped egg whites to create a mousse-like treat that balanced indulgence with a touch of practicality. While it may not sound like the belle of the potluck table today, in its time, it was a creative way to transform a pantry staple into an elegant dessert. Prunes, or dried plums, were widely appreciated for their affordability and long shelf life. They were particularly common in post-war cooking, where resourceful homemakers turned simple ingredients into inventive recipes. With the rise of gelatin-based desserts, Prune Whip fit right into the trend of light, fluffy textures. It also offered a surprising nutritional bonus. Prunes were, and still are, known for their digestive benefits, making this dessert as functional as it was flavorful. By the late 20th century, however, Prune Whip fell out of favor. Healthier eating didn't hurt it. Marketing did. Prunes became saddled with a reputation as grandma food, overshadowing their versatility. A crisp autumn day in the 1970s wasn't complete without a trip to the local farm stand. Fresh apples, homemade pies, and of course, a jug of unpasteurized apple cider, cloudy, rich, and straight from the press. It was a seasonal tradition, the kind of drink you poured into a glass and sipped cold, or warmed up on the stove with a cinnamon stick. No labels, no expiration dates, just fresh-pressed fruit in its purest form. For generations, farm-fresh juices were a staple, especially in rural areas where people trusted their local orchards. The juice was made by simply crushing fruit and collecting the liquid. No heat treatment, no extra processing, and because it wasn't filtered, it had that distinct, pulpy texture that store-bought juice just couldn't match. But as food safety research advanced, so did concerns over harmful bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella. Unpasteurized juice, while natural, carried risks, especially for children and the elderly. By the 1990s, regulations tightened, requiring warning labels and, in many cases, pasteurization for commercial sale. While you can still find raw cider at some farm stands, it often comes with a disclaimer. Meatloaf is a dish as American as baseball and apple pie, though its origins stretch far beyond our shores. This hearty meal, often paired with creamy mashed potatoes and rich gravy, has been a dinner table staple for decades. Did you know its roots trace back to 5th century Europe? Early versions used minced meat and grains, evolving over centuries to become the comfort food we know today. By the mid-20th century, meatloaf hit its stride in the US thanks to its affordability and adaptability. A pound of ground beef, a handful of breadcrumbs, an egg, and a few pantry staples could stretch to feed the whole family, an essential quality during the Great Depression and rationing in wartime. And those mashed potatoes were the perfect sidekick, whipped to perfection, seasoned just right, and often drenched in savory gravy. Together, they formed a duo so beloved that it might just have kept some dinner tables from declaring civil war over picky eating habits. Ketchup-topped meatloaf wasn't a universal choice. Regional variations abound, with some preferring a tangy barbecue glaze or even a brown sugar and mustard topping. Whatever the sauce, one thing's certain: meatloaf is proof that simple ingredients, when mixed with a little love, can create culinary magic. A perfectly roasted chicken was once the ultimate symbol of home cooking. Before rotisserie chickens lined supermarket shelves, families gathered around the table for a golden, crispy-skinned bird fresh from the oven. Coated in a flavorful crust of herbs and breadcrumbs, this dish turned an everyday staple into something worthy of a special occasion. Whole chickens were a budget-friendly choice, stretching across multiple meals. Unlike pre-cut pieces, a whole bird could be roasted, carved, and repurposed into soups or sandwiches, making it a practical investment. The breadcrumb and herb crust added texture and flavor, sealing in juices while creating a beautifully crisp exterior. Traditional blends featured rosemary, thyme, and parsley, but regional variations introduced garlic, lemon zest, or even a hint of paprika for extra depth. Pre-seasoned chicken breasts, boneless cuts, and store-bought rotisserie birds made the slow-roasted whole chicken tradition feel unnecessary. For many, the extra step of trussing, seasoning, and roasting no longer fit into busy weeknight schedules. Yet, for those who remember the aroma of herbs mingling with sizzling chicken fat in a warm oven, there's no substitute. Tripe is the edible stomach lining of cows, and it's one of those ingredients that makes you go, "Really?" But in many cultures, tripe was a beloved dish, often cooked in soups and stews. Here's the thing. These poverty foods weren't just about using the cheapest ingredients available. They were about resourcefulness and respecting the entire animal. People found ways to use every part, from the meat to the organs and even the stomach lining, turning what others might discard into nourishing meals. Now, as for tripe, it has a unique texture that's chewy but tender, and it soaks up flavors beautifully. Back in the day, it was a cheap way to add protein to a meal, especially when times were tough. It's the kind of dish that takes some getting used to, both in terms of taste and texture. Today, tripe is more likely to be found in ethnic cuisine than on the average American dinner table. It's one of those foods that hasn't quite stood the test of time, but it still has a loyal following among those who appreciate its unique qualities. Canned ham glaze bake turned an ordinary evening into something that felt almost like a holiday. The ham came from a can, sliced thick and arranged neatly in a baking dish, each piece topped with a pineapple ring and a cherry in the middle. Brown sugar and mustard melted together into a glossy glaze that bubbled down the sides, caramelizing as it baked. The scent that filled the kitchen was sweet, smoky, and cheerful, the kind of smell that made the smallest dinner feel like celebration. Working moms loved it because it looked fancy but cost little, and it could feed a table full of hungry faces without complaint. The glaze thickened at the corners, the ham crisped around the edges, and the pineapple turned golden, soft, and fragrant. Every forkful tasted like nostalgia, sweet and salty, simple and proud. Some families made it on Sundays, others on Tuesdays, but it always brought joy. The leftover syrup in the pan was spooned over rice or mashed potatoes, nothing ever wasted. It was proof that even convenience could hold warmth, and that love did not need to be slow to be real. The 1970s were a golden age for layered desserts, and few could compete with the indulgent simplicity of a dessert built on butterscotch pudding, whipped topping, and a graham cracker crust. This was the era of quick-fix elegance, when convenience foods met the creativity of home cooks determined to make something memorable. Blessed Butterscotch Delight was a perfect example. Rich, creamy, and easy to assemble, it became a favorite at church potlucks and family gatherings. The popularity of butterscotch pudding soared during the mid-20th century, largely thanks to its warm, caramel-like flavor and versatility. Paired with graham crackers, which were already a pantry staple, and whipped topping, a revolutionary product that simplified dessert making, it was a dessert that anyone could whip up with minimal effort. And let's not forget the charm of its layered presentation, which made it feel just fancy enough to stand out on a crowded dessert table. So, why did it fade away? By the 1990s, pre-made desserts and lighter options had taken over. The heavy reliance on processed ingredients didn't help, as health trends began favoring fresh fruits and whole grains over pudding mixes and whipped toppings. For much of the 20th century, canned foods were a kitchen essential. They were cheap, convenient, and had an impressively long shelf life. Whether it was a can of soup, vegetables, or condensed milk, chances were high that the can itself was sealed with lead solder. It seemed like a practical solution at the time. Lead was easy to work with, and it created a strong, airtight seal that kept food from spoiling. But what people didn't realize was that the lead in those seams wasn't just staying on the outside. Over time, especially with acidic foods like tomatoes or fruit, the lead could leach into the food. And unlike a bad ingredient you can taste or smell, lead poisoning happens slowly. Symptoms could take years to appear, affecting the nervous system, brain function, and even childhood development. The real turning point came in the 1970s, when health experts made the undeniable link between lead exposure and serious health risks. By 1991, lead-soldered food cans were completely banned in the U.S., replaced with safer manufacturing methods. While today's cans are lead-free, the lesson stuck. Sometimes the biggest dangers aren't the ones you can see. Hamburger hash is the unsung hero of the frugal kitchen. Born out of necessity and ingenuity, this dish has been rescuing leftovers and stretching budgets for decades. The concept is simple: ground beef, diced potatoes, and onions cooked together in a skillet. But its simplicity is exactly what makes it timeless. The origins of hash can be traced to the 17th century, when the term came from the French word hacher, meaning to chop. In America, it evolved into a practical way to repurpose leftover meats. By the 20th century, hamburger hash became a staple in many households, particularly during tough economic times, when every ingredient had to count. Potatoes were the perfect partner, cheap, filling, and versatile. Onions, meanwhile, brought a touch of sweetness to balance the savory beef. Some cooks added a sprinkle of paprika or a dash of Worcestershire sauce for an extra punch of flavor. While it may not have the glamour of a Sunday roast, hamburger hash had one major advantage. It came together fast, a blessing on busy weeknights. Hamburger hash proves that even leftovers can shine, especially if you fry them just right. It's a humble dish with a big heart, reminding us that great meals don't need complicated recipes. There was a time when vegetables weren't just steamed and forgotten on the side of the plate. They were the star of the meal. This dish took humble cauliflower and elevated it to something rich, comforting, and undeniably satisfying. Baked in a velvety cheese sauce and topped with golden breadcrumbs, creamy cauliflower gratin was a favorite at homecoming dinners, potlucks, and holiday tables alike. Cauliflower was once an affordable and widely available vegetable, appreciated for its versatility. It absorbed flavors beautifully, making it a natural pairing for creamy, cheesy sauces. The gratin method, borrowed from classic French cooking, ensured that every bite was infused with deep, savory richness. The top layer of breadcrumbs added just the right amount of crunch, creating a contrast that kept each forkful interesting. Some home cooks added a pinch of nutmeg or mustard to enhance the flavor, while others used a mix of cheeses for extra depth. So why did it fade from dinner tables? As frozen and canned vegetables became more common, fresh cauliflower lost its appeal. Many home cooks swapped slow-baked dishes for quicker, less labor-intensive sides, and gratins became associated with special occasions rather than everyday meals. Oysters Rockefeller consists of succulent oysters on the half-shell, topped with a rich buttery mixture of finely chopped herbs and breadcrumbs, then baked or broiled until golden. Originating in 1899 at Antoine's in New Orleans, one of America's historic restaurants, the dish's exact recipe remains a secret but typically includes spinach, celery, and sometimes an anise-flavored liqueur, creating a luxurious topping. The oysters are gently poached in their shells to retain moisture, then crowned with this seasoned blend. After assembling, they are broiled until the topping bubbles and browns slightly, offering a delightful contrast in textures between the creamy, tender oyster and the crisp, flavorful topping. Oysters Rockefeller is not only a treat for the palate, but also a creative celebration of local ingredients, elevating the simple oyster to a decadent culinary experience. Chicken spaghetti was the kind of meal that made everyone pause and smile when the oven door opened. It was creamy, cheesy, and colorful, made with shredded chicken, chopped bell peppers, and a can or two of condensed soup that stretched flavor farther than anyone expected. The spaghetti went in soft, tangled in sauce until it turned into a rich casserole that could feed a crowd with ease. The cheese bubbled on top, golden and stringy, the sort that clung to every forkful. It was the definition of a working mother's magic, quick, practical, and somehow perfect every time. Kids loved it because it was warm and familiar. Adults loved it because it made leftovers worth looking forward to. It was not fancy food, but it was family food, built to comfort after long days and long weeks. It said, "You are home now." Every bite was a reminder that love could be creamy and baked, tucked into the shape of a casserole. The recipe lived in every small-town kitchen, written on note cards smudged with sauce and fingerprints. It could feed 6 or 10 or more, depending on what needed stretching. Some added mushrooms, others a handful of peas, and every family claimed their way was best. But no matter the version, the smell of bubbling cheese and pepper always meant one thing. The day was done and dinner was taken care of. In the days when nothing went to waste, a pot of slow-cooked beans with hog jowls and onions was a way of life. Rooted in Southern cooking traditions, this hearty meal was a staple at church potlucks and community gatherings. Pinto beans, rich in protein and fiber, were an affordable way to feed a crowd, while hog jowls, a cut from the cheek of the pig, added smoky, savory depth that transformed the humble legume into something extraordinary. Historically, this dish thrived in communities where resourcefulness was key. Hog jowls, often considered a byproduct, were a favorite in Southern cuisine, where the whole hog philosophy reigned supreme. Combined with onions and slow cooking, the result was a dish that was simple yet deeply flavorful. And let's not forget the practicality. Beans are inexpensive, shelf-stable, and could simmer all day while the cook tackled other tasks. But as modern tastes shifted, hog jowls fell out of favor. Health trends, coupled with the rise of leaner meats, left this dish behind in the dust of culinary history. Convenience foods like canned beans and pre-seasoned mixes didn't help either. In the Midwest, especially around Wisconsin, there was a holiday tradition that might make modern food safety inspectors break into a cold sweat. Raw ground beef served on rye bread, often topped with onions and a dash of salt and pepper. Known as cannibal sandwiches, this dish wasn't some underground delicacy. It was a staple at family gatherings, particularly around Christmas, when butchers sold the freshest beef and people trusted their local meat markets to provide high-quality, bacteria-free cuts. Eating raw meat might sound risky today, but for decades, it was considered perfectly normal in certain communities. The preparation was simple. Freshly ground beef, preferably from a trusted butcher, was spread onto slices of rye bread, sometimes with a smear of butter or mustard. Some enjoyed it with a side of pickles, others with a cold beer. To those who grew up with it, the taste was rich, the texture smooth, and the risk? Barely a thought. That changed as foodborne illnesses became a growing concern. By the late 20th century, increased cases of E. coli and salmonella made raw beef a serious health hazard. Swiss steak, a dish that's neither Swiss nor a steak, but somehow it has become a classic on American dinner tables. The name Swiss refers to the technique of Swissing, a process of tenderizing tougher cuts of beef like round steak by pounding or rolling it out. The result is a melt-in-your-mouth meal that feels far fancier than its humble beginnings. This dish gained popularity in mid-century America, when home cooks needed to stretch their budgets. By slow-cooking tenderized beef in a rich tomato-based sauce, the flavors could develop while turning inexpensive cuts into something extraordinary. Onions were essential, adding sweetness and depth to the tangy tomatoes. The result was a savory, satisfying dish perfect for ladling over mashed potatoes, rice, or even buttered noodles. Tomatoes, a key player in Swiss steak, were a practical choice. Canned tomatoes, first popularized in the early 1900s, made this dish accessible year-round. Who can resist the sight of those onions caramelizing in the skillet before being smothered in sauce? One could say Swiss steak is the Cinderella story of the food world. It starts tough, a little rough around the edges, but with a little care and time, it transforms into something utterly irresistible. Proof that sometimes slow and steady wins the race. Slow cooking was once a necessity, not a luxury. Before pressure cookers and pre-packaged meals, tougher cuts of beef were transformed through hours of gentle simmering, unlocking deep, rich flavors. This smoky chipotle beef ragu was one such dish, a meal that took time but rewarded patience with melt-in-your-mouth tenderness. Chipotle peppers, known for their earthy heat, were a staple in traditional Mexican and Southwestern cooking, but by the mid-20th century, their smoky kick found its way into American kitchens. Paired with tomatoes, garlic, and slow-braised beef, this dish delivered a bold, layered flavor that stood apart from ordinary pot roasts. Served over creamy polenta or even buttered noodles, it was both comforting and deeply satisfying. Despite its rich taste, this meal was surprisingly budget-friendly. Beef chuck or brisket, once some of the most affordable cuts, became tender and flavorful when cooked low and slow. The sauce was built from pantry staples, making it an easy, accessible choice for home cooks. But over time, as quick weeknight meals took priority and polenta lost ground to pasta and rice, this dish faded from dinner tables. Today, chipotle has seen a resurgence in trendy restaurants, but this home-style beef ragu remains a forgotten classic. Beef bourguignon is a cornerstone from Burgundy, involving marinated and slow-cooked beef chunks, typically tougher cuts like chuck, bathed in red wine, usually Burgundy, to tenderize the meat over several hours. This hearty stew is fortified with onions, garlic, and carrots, and enhanced with sautéed mushrooms and crisp lardons. Historically, this method likely evolved as a means to tenderize and enrich less desirable cuts of meat. The stew develops a rich, deep umami flavor from the Maillard reaction, which occurs as the beef browns, and the complex flavors intensify as the wine slowly melds with the herbs and vegetables. The slow cooking process not only enriches the stew's flavor, but also fills the kitchen with an inviting aromatic warmth, making beef bourguignon synonymous with comforting, rich French culinary tradition. Hamburger gravy over toast was born from tight weeks and nearly empty fridges. Ground beef, flour, and milk. That was all it needed to become something rich enough to stretch across a family. The beef browned, the flour went in, and the milk thickened into a smooth, creamy sauce that poured over toasted bread like comfort made visible. It was cheap, yes, but it never felt poor. The smell of it hit every corner of the house, a mix of butter and warmth that made everything feel fine for a while. Some added onions, others a splash of Worcestershire sauce, but it never asked for more than it had. Dinner was ready in minutes, and the plates came back clean every time. Moms liked that part most, the quiet proof that she had done enough. This was food that held a family together, even when the cupboards were thin. During the 1970s, baked chicken dishes were the unsung heroes of potluck dinners, and this one, with its honey, pecan, and mustard glaze, struck the perfect balance between sweet and savory. Holy honey pecan chicken brought a touch of sophistication to the church potluck table, elevating humble chicken into a dish that felt both hearty and refined. The roots of this recipe trace back to Southern cooking traditions, where pecans were abundant and honey was a natural sweetener long before sugar became widespread. By the mid-20th century, recipes like this embraced the availability of affordable chicken cuts and pantry staples like mustard and honey. Chicken was cheap, easy to prepare, and universally loved, while the glaze was a clever way to turn basic ingredients into something special. So, why don't we see it much today? Part of the answer lies in the rise of boneless, skinless chicken breasts and pre-marinated options, which eliminated the need for labor-intensive glazes. Add to that the growing preference for lighter, grilled dishes, and this once popular recipe found itself fading into culinary obscurity. Turkey and gravy, traditionally a centerpiece of Thanksgiving but often enjoyed beyond the holiday season, holds a special place in American culinary history. Its pairing with mashed turnips, though less common today, harkens back to a time when root vegetables were staples in kitchens for their affordability and long storage life. Turkey has been an American icon since colonial days. Benjamin Franklin famously praised the bird, calling it a much more respectable bird than the bald eagle. While roasting turkey might be associated with grand feasts, smaller versions, like turkey breasts, frequently appeared on mid-century dinner tables, making the meal more practical for everyday cooking. The star of the plate, next to the turkey, is the gravy. Made from the drippings left in the pan, it's rich, savory, and ties everything together. A good gravy, as some would say, can salvage even a dry turkey. Often overshadowed by mashed potatoes, turnips were a go-to side dish in earlier generations. Packed with nutrients and a slightly peppery flavor, they offered a lighter, unique alternative to spuds. Mashed with butter, cream, or even a touch of maple syrup, they brought earthy warmth to the plate. If turkey is the headliner, gravy is the conductor. And turnips? They're the backup singers you never knew you needed. A harmonious meal indeed. Tornados Rossini is an indulgent reflection of haute cuisine, named after the gourmet aficionado and renowned composer Gioacchino Rossini. Crafted by the legendary chef Auguste Escoffier in Paris, this dish features a medallion of beef tenderloin, cooked in butter and crowned with a slice of sumptuous foie gras. Resting on a crouton that soaks up the juices, the tornados is lavished with a rich Madeira demi-glace that's infused with truffles and finished with butter, then garnished with fresh truffle slices. The preparation of this dish demands precision. The beef tenderloin seared to perfection, the foie gras just melting, and the sauce richly coating each component. Tornados Rossini not only showcases the luxury of its ingredients, but also the skill in combining them to deliver a dish that is as opulent in taste as it is in history. Minute steak with onions was speed in a skillet, the perfect answer to evenings that ran too long. Thin cuts of beef sizzled fast in butter, joined by sliced onions that caramelized into sweetness almost before the table was set. A side of instant potatoes or buttered noodles finished the job, turning a quick fry into a meal worth sitting down for. You could hear the hiss of the pan, smell the onion melting into the meat, and no dinner was just minutes away. It was not glamorous, but it was honest. Food that filled a plate and a need. Working moms leaned on it because it worked every time. The pan drippings became a kind of gravy, wiped up with bread or potatoes. No one complained. No one left hungry. It was the taste of the 1970s kitchen, quick, fragrant, and made with quiet endurance. By the mid-20th century, desserts had begun embracing an unlikely star: whipped toppings. The faithful fluff salad was no exception. A mixture of pineapple chunks, instant pudding mix, mini marshmallows, and whipped topping. This dessert was as much a texture experiment as it was a sugary indulgence. Emerging during the 1950s and 60s, fluff salads rode the wave of post-war prosperity. Processed foods like instant pudding and canned fruit were symbols of modernity and time-saving innovation, making them ideal for busy families and church potlucks. Adding marshmallows, initially a campfire treats, brought a playful twist that appealed to children and adults alike. For many, it was a dish that straddled the line between fun and functional. But as the health-conscious trends of the 1980s took hold, this sugar-loaded dessert began to lose its charm. Critics pointed to its processed ingredients and lack of nutritional value, relegating it to fond memories of a more carefree era. Despite its decline, the faithful fluff salad remains a snapshot of its time, a reminder of when culinary creativity meant combining unlikely ingredients to bring a smile to the faces of churchgoers and potluck attendees alike. Bright red candies, cherry-flavored snacks, and even some holiday treats in the 1970s owed their bold color to a single ingredient: red dye number 2. It was everywhere, from gumballs to cake frostings, giving sweets that signature vibrant hue that made them impossible to resist. At the time, artificial dyes were a standard part of food production, helping manufacturers make their products more visually appealing. After all, who wanted a dull pink candy when you could have a deep, fiery red one? The problem? Red dye. Number 2 wasn't as harmless as it looked. By the mid-1970s, scientific studies linked it to potential health risks, including concerns over carcinogenic effects. When Soviet researchers published findings suggesting a connection to cancer in lab rats, the US had no choice but to take a second look. Public concern mounted, and in 1976, the FDA banned the dye, triggering a nationwide panic. Some candy makers scrambled to find alternatives, while others simply pulled their red products from shelves altogether, resulting in the infamous disappearance of red M&Ms, even though they didn't actually contain the dye. Today, red dye number 2 is a thing of the past, but artificial food colorings are still debated. Cheesy broccoli and rice casserole is a dish that may just be the ultimate comfort food. It's the kind of meal that fills the house with an irresistible aroma, combining the earthiness of broccoli, the warmth of rice, and the creamy richness of cheese. Its popularity skyrocketed in the 1960s, when casseroles became a go-to for busy families looking for easy, satisfying meals. The origin of this casserole can be traced back to the post-war era when convenience foods, like canned soups and processed cheeses, took center stage. The combination of broccoli and rice, often bound together with a can of creamy mushroom soup, was an affordable and filling way to stretch ingredients. Over time, home cooks started adding their own twists, incorporating cheddar cheese, garlic, and even a crunchy breadcrumb topping for texture. While it's easy to dismiss cheesy broccoli and rice casserole as just another side dish, it's also the type of meal that can easily steal the spotlight at dinner. It's a versatile dish, whether served alongside a roast chicken or as the main event for a meatless dinner. Cheesy broccoli and rice casserole is the ultimate kitchen hack. Tastes gourmet, takes no time, and leaves everyone smiling. It's the kind of dish that proves simplicity can be deliciously satisfying. Sole meunière is an exemplary dish that highlights the inherent flavors of its primary ingredient through a simple yet precise preparation method. This dish involves a sole fillet, lightly dusted with flour, then pan-fried in butter to a perfect golden brown. After cooking, the fillet is enhanced with a sauce of the pan's browned butter, fresh lemon juice, and chopped parsley, drizzled over the fish to amplify its delicate, sweet taste. The freshness and quality of the sole are crucial. Ideally, the fish is prepared soon after being caught, underscoring the importance of ingredient freshness in French culinary arts. The preparation focuses on preserving the fish's natural flavors, complemented subtly by the nutty browned butter and the bright lemon juice. Choosing sole, a flat fish valued for its fine texture and mild flavor, is vital as it cooks quickly and uniformly, making sole meunière a revered dish for its elegant simplicity. Speaking of strange meals, wait till you hear about hog maw. Now, this is a dish that's sure to impress your dinner guests. It's basically a pig's stomach stuffed with, well, who knows? Probably whatever was lying around. When you think of luxurious foods, a pig's stomach is probably the last thing that comes to mind. But back when wallets were tight, people had to make do with whatever they could find. It was found in American, soul food, Chinese, Mexican, Portuguese, Italian, and Vietnamese dishes. Hog maw was especially popular in Pennsylvania Dutch country, where nothing went to waste. Now, hog maw might sound a little fear factor-ish, but it was actually a way to stretch ingredients and make a filling meal for the whole family. It's like the ultimate meatloaf, if meatloaf came with an organ-based casing. These days, the idea of eating a pig's stomach might turn some people off, but back in the day, it was just another way to enjoy a meal. Chili Mac was what happened when leftovers became a second chance. It started with last night's chili, thick, spicy, and still holding its heat, stirred into freshly boiled elbow macaroni until it became something new entirely. The cheese, if there was any left in the fridge, went on top, melting just enough to hold everything together. The dish was quick, cheap, and full of life, a perfect fix for nights when time ran out and hunger could not wait. Kids loved it because it felt like comfort in a bowl. Moms loved it because it meant nothing was wasted. Every spoonful was hearty, familiar, and full of flavor that felt earned. It was thrift-made joyful, proof that leftovers were not the end of the meal but the start of another. In homes where every dollar counted, Chili Mac stretched both food and gratitude farther than anyone thought possible. It was the weeknight hero of kitchen tables across America. Easy, satisfying, and always ready to save the day. The scent of chili mixed with noodles was as real as laughter, and every bite tasted like togetherness. It was what family looked like, messy, warm, and enough for everyone. When it came to feeding a family on a tight budget, casseroles were the backbone of 1970s home cooking, and Hopeful Hot Dog Casserole was one of the era's most resourceful creations. Combining hot dogs, baked beans, and a cornbread topping, it turned simple, inexpensive ingredients into a dish that could feed a crowd with ease. It wasn't fancy, but it was undeniably comforting and a little fun. Hot dogs, introduced to American cuisine in the 19th century, became a kitchen staple by the mid-20th century thanks to their affordability and versatility. Pairing them with baked beans, another budget-friendly favorite, created a savory base with a hint of sweetness. The cornbread topping, inspired by Southern traditions, added texture and warmth, making this casserole feel a little more special than its components might suggest. It was quick to assemble, easy to bake, and hearty enough to fill hungry stomachs after a Sunday service. However, as palates shifted toward fresher, less processed foods, this casserole's reliance on packaged ingredients led to its decline. Hot dogs lost some of their appeal as health trends took hold, and the dish's humble simplicity began to feel dated. In the 1970s, home canning was more than just a hobby. It was a way to stretch the grocery budget and keep the pantry stocked year-round. Families filled their shelves with jars of green beans, corn, and carrots, all preserved with time-tested methods passed down through generations. But while fruits and jams could be safely canned with a boiling water bath, low-acid vegetables were another story. Without a pressure cooker, those innocent-looking jars could turn into ticking time bombs for botulism. For years, many home canners relied on boiling water alone, believing that if it sealed, it was safe. Some added aspirin or vinegar, thinking it would help ward off bacteria. Others simply trusted the process. After all, their grandparents had done it. The problem? Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria behind botulism, thrives in low oxygen, low-acid environments like improperly canned vegetables. It doesn't change the taste, smell, or appearance of food, making it nearly impossible to detect until symptoms appear. As cases of botulism poisoning mounted, food safety officials began cracking down, emphasizing the need for pressure canning. Once a humble staple of farmhouse kitchens, savory sweet onion pie was a testament to how simple ingredients could be transformed into something extraordinary. With its flaky crust, velvety custard, and layers of slow caramelized onions, this pie was both comforting and surprisingly elegant, a dish that fit just as well on a holiday table as it did at a casual family dinner. Onions have long been one of the most affordable and widely available vegetables, making them a practical choice for home cooks looking to stretch their budget. When cooked low and slow, their sharp bite mellowed into a deep, natural sweetness. Combined with eggs, cream, and sometimes a sprinkle of cheese, they created a rich, quiche-like filling that was both satisfying and economical. Some versions leaned into the Southern tradition of sweet onions, using Vidalias to enhance the dish's natural sugars. So, why did this once popular pie disappear? As savory tarts and quiches became more associated with upscale brunches rather than home-cooked meals, hearty onion-based dishes faded from everyday menus. The rise of pre-made frozen quiches also contributed, making from-scratch versions less common. This creamy, savory casserole, ham tetrazzini with egg noodles, showcases how a few simple ingredients can be transformed into something truly special. While turkey tetrazzini is more commonly known, ham tetrazzini became a popular variation, especially for using up leftover holiday ham in a way that felt both indulgent and comforting. Named after Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini, this dish originally featured chicken or turkey, often paired with a creamy sauce, mushrooms, and a variety of seasonings. The exact origin of ham tetrazzini is unclear, but the combination of a rich, buttery sauce and tender ham makes it a favorite for families seeking a hearty, filling meal. Egg noodles, thanks to their soft texture and ability to absorb sauces, are the perfect base for this casserole. When tossed with the ham and creamy sauce, they turn into a flavorful foundation that holds everything together. A sprinkle of Parmesan cheese on top before baking creates a golden, bubbly crust that takes the dish to another level. For years, cornbread stuffed pork tenderloin was a homecoming dinner favorite, combining the rich, juicy flavors of pork with the comforting, slightly sweet notes of cornbread dressing. It was the kind of meal that felt celebratory but was made with everyday ingredients. Pork tenderloin was an affordable cut, prized for its tenderness and quick cooking time. Cornbread, a staple in southern and midwestern kitchens, made the perfect stuffing, absorbing the juices from the meat while adding its signature crumbly texture. Sage and dried cranberries brought a hint of warmth and sweetness, making this dish a natural fit for fall and winter gatherings. Some versions included pecans for extra crunch, while others used sausage to double down on the savory depth. So why did this dish fade from dinner tables? As boneless, pre-seasoned pork cuts became common, elaborate stuffed roasts became less appealing to the average home cook. The extra steps of butterflying, filling, and tying up a tenderloin made it feel like a holiday dish rather than a weeknight option. But for those who appreciate the balance of savory pork and buttery cornbread, this is a recipe that deserves a second look, because some traditions are too good to leave behind. Rabbit stew is a beloved traditional dish in various cultures, renowned for its hearty and comforting nature. This stew typically features tender pieces of rabbit slow-cooked with onions, garlic, and aromatic herbs like rosemary or thyme, which subtly enhance the mild flavor of the rabbit. Additional vegetables such as carrots, celery, and potatoes often join the mix, creating a robust, one-pot meal. The stewing liquid, usually wine or stock, enriches the dish, lending depth and complexity as it simmers. Rabbit meat, known for its leanness and delicacy, benefits greatly from the slow cooking process, becoming incredibly tender and infused with the rich flavors of the broth and vegetables. Rabbit stew is especially appreciated during the colder months or in rural settings where rabbit is a common game meat. Hoppin' John is a southern classic made with black-eyed peas, rice, and pork, often flavored with onions, garlic, and spices. This dish was traditionally eaten on New Year's Day for good luck and prosperity, with the peas representing coins and the greens often served alongside representing dollars. Some recipes use ham hock, fatback, country sausage, or smoked turkey parts instead of bacon. A few use green peppers or vinegar and spices. Hoppin' John was a hearty, comforting dish that's perfect for feeding a crowd on a budget. It was a one-pot wonder that brings together simple ingredients in a delicious way. However, despite its tasty credentials, Hoppin' John hasn't quite made it to the top of the culinary charts. It's a dish steeped in tradition, but not one that has a big presence in today's trendy food scene. That said, it's still a beloved dish in the South and a tasty way to start the new year. Pork chop and rice bake was the miracle of one dish doing it all. A layer of rice went down first, mixed with onion soup mix and broth, soaking up flavor while it baked. Pork chops rested on top, browning in the oven until tender, their juices seeping into the rice below. The house filled with the scent of onion and butter, the kind that wrapped around you like a blanket. When the dish came out bubbling, it needed no sides, no extras, just a spoon. Each bite was salty, savory, and rich, tasting far fancier than its humble ingredients. Moms loved it because it was simple. No stirring, no watching, just trust in the oven's quiet promise. It was comfort made convenient, a dinner that felt slow even when time was short. The edges crisped, the center stayed soft, and the flavor lingered long after the plates were cleared. During an era when convenience reigned supreme, few desserts captured the hearts of church potlucks quite like a no-bake peanut butter pie. With its creamy, sweet peanut butter filling nestled inside a graham cracker crust, pious peanut butter pie became a symbol of simplicity and indulgence. It was rich, satisfying, and best of all, didn't require turning on the oven, a blessing for busy cooks and warm kitchens. The origins of this dessert lie in the mid-century love affair with peanut butter, which soared in popularity thanks to its affordability and versatility. Pairing it with sweetened condensed milk and whipped topping, staples of the time, turned humble ingredients into a decadent treat. The graham cracker crust, first popularized in the 1930s, added a buttery crunch that balanced the pie's smooth filling. It was practical, easy to assemble, and required little more than a refrigerator to set. Yet, as dessert trends evolved, this pie began to fade from favor. The rise of more elaborate, multi-layered confections and a push toward healthier eating made its rich, calorie-dense filling seem out of step with modern tastes. Before pasteurized eggs became the standard, raw eggs were a common ingredient in homemade recipes, especially in rich, creamy dishes like eggnog and mayonnaise. It was just how things were done. Grandma didn't think twice about cracking a fresh egg straight into the blender to whip up a batch of silky mayo or stirring raw yolks into a holiday eggnog that packed as much punch as the bourbon inside it. It was tradition, and nobody questioned it until they had to. By the late 20th century, food safety experts started raising alarms about the growing risk of salmonella contamination. Unlike today's commercially pasteurized eggs, the ones sitting in a 1970s fridge came straight from the farm, sometimes with a little extra nature still on the shell. A contaminated egg here and there wasn't enough to stop the show, until outbreaks became harder to ignore. By the 1990s, regulations tightened, and pasteurized eggs became the safer choice. Despite the risks, plenty of old-school cooks still swear by the taste and texture of raw egg mayo and eggnog. Some argue pasteurization dulls the flavor, while others simply miss the thrill of living on the edge. With roots in Southern cooking, smothered chicken with onions and gravy is the perfect blend of crispy chicken, tender onions, and rich gravy that makes you want to go back for seconds, and maybe even thirds. Smothering food, whether it's chicken, pork chops, or beef, is an iconic Southern technique. The term smothered refers to cooking the meat slowly in its own juices or a flavorful sauce, often with onions or bell peppers, until it's tender and full of flavor. For this dish, the chicken is first browned to achieve a crispy golden skin before being smothered in sautéed onions and a gravy made from pan drippings. The result is a plate of food that's pure comfort. Gravy, of course, is the magic behind smothered chicken. Made from the fond left in the pan after frying, it's rich and savory, sometimes thickened with flour or cornstarch and seasoned to perfection. And those onions caramelize beautifully, adding sweetness and depth to every bite. Smothered chicken is like a hug on a plate, if that hug could also be crispy and covered in gravy. It's a dish that brings people to the table, no matter the occasion. Aspic glazed meatloaf is an example of mid-20th century American cuisine that combines traditional meatloaf with a gelatinous aspic topping. This dish reflects a period when aspic, a savory jelly made from clarified meat broths and gelatin, was popular in the culinary world for its ability to preserve and enhance the presentation of dishes. The meatloaf itself is typically prepared with ground meat, often a mix of beef, pork, and veal, seasoned with onions, garlic, breadcrumbs, and eggs to bind the mixture. After baking, the meatloaf is cooled and then glazed with a clear aspic made from beef or chicken stock that has been reduced and mixed with gelatin until set. This glaze not only adds a glossy, appetizing finish, but also introduces a subtle, savory flavor that complements the rich meatloaf. The aspic also helps to keep the meatloaf moist and flavorful by sealing in the juices. Bean bread is a unique type of bread made by mixing cooked beans into the dough. This dish was a creative way to stretch ingredients and make a filling, nutritious meal. The beans added protein and fiber, making the bread more substantial than your average loaf. Bean bread has a dense, hearty texture and a slightly nutty flavor from the beans. It's a bit of an acquired taste, but it was a practical solution during times when flour was scarce or expensive. In today's world of artisan breads and gluten-free options, bean bread hasn't exactly made a comeback. It's one of those foods that feels like a relic from another time, but it's still an interesting part of culinary history. If you're feeling adventurous, it might be worth trying your hand at baking a loaf just for the experience. In the 1970s, dips reigned supreme at church potlucks and family gatherings, and few were as delightfully quirky as dill pickle dip. A creamy blend of sour cream, cream cheese, and finely chopped dill pickles, this tangy appetizer offered bold flavor with minimal effort. Whether served with crackers, chips, or vegetable sticks, it was an unexpected crowd pleaser that stood out among more traditional offerings. This dish emerged during an era when convenience and creativity defined home cooking. Dill pickles had been a staple in American pantries since the early 20th century, and combining them with creamy bases like sour cream or cream cheese was an innovative way to transform basic ingredients into something new. It was practical, too. Easy to whip up, affordable, and well-suited for large gatherings. So, what happened to this retro favorite? As culinary trends evolved, so did dips. Flashier, more complex recipes featuring exotic ingredients like artichokes and sun-dried tomatoes became the new standard, leaving humble dill pickle dip behind. And for those with pickier palates, the sharp, briny flavor wasn't always a hit. Dill pickle dip evokes nostalgia for an era when recipes were shared on index cards, and the measure of a good potluck dish was how quickly it disappeared. In the 1970s, lighting up a cigarette at the dinner table wasn't just allowed, it was expected. Restaurants had ashtrays on every table, waiters took orders through a haze of smoke, and no one batted an eye if you alternated bites of steak with puffs of a Marlboro. Whether at home, in a diner, or even on an airplane, smoking while eating was just part of the culture. Back then, cigarette ads featured doctors, Hollywood icons, and even cartoon camels, reinforcing the idea that smoking wasn't just normal, it was sophisticated. Families would gather around the table, and after a home-cooked meal, someone would light up without a second thought. At fast food joints, parents puffed away while kids unwrapped cheeseburgers. Even in fancy restaurants, a good meal was often finished with a cigarette and a cup of coffee, like some kind of ritual. But as medical studies piled up linking secondhand smoke to serious health risks, the public's tolerance started to shift. The first major bans started in the late 80s, and by the 2000s, smoking in restaurants was virtually extinct. Roast chicken with stuffing and green beans is a meal that evokes family gatherings, holidays, and a sense of home. This classic dinner has long been a centerpiece of American dining, combining practicality with elegance. Roasting chicken is one of the oldest cooking methods, but by the 20th century, it became a weekly tradition for many households. Chickens were relatively inexpensive, easy to prepare, and, if seasoned and roasted just right, deliciously satisfying. The key to a perfect roast chicken lies in the balance: crispy, golden skin on the outside and juicy, flavorful meat inside. Stuffing or dressing, depending on your regional preference, traces back to ancient Rome. By the time it reached American kitchens, cooks used bread cubes, herbs, and sometimes vegetables to create the savory, aromatic side we know today. While traditionally cooked inside the bird, many began baking it separately for a crispier texture, what some might call progress. Green beans complete this trio, often sautéed with garlic, almonds, or a touch of bacon. They brought a fresh, vibrant contrast to the richness of the chicken and stuffing. If you roast a chicken and make stuffing, you're not just making dinner, you're making memories. And for anyone who's ever had the leftovers, the memories taste just as good the next day. Slow cooking was once an art form, and few dishes showcased it better than a well-braised short rib. This was a meal that required patience. Tough cuts of beef transformed into fork-tender perfection after hours of simmering in a rich, aromatic sauce. Deeply savory, fall-off-the-bone ribs were the reward for anyone willing to wait. Short ribs were once considered a budget cut, prized not for their tenderness, but for their flavor when cooked properly. Unlike steaks or roasts, these ribs needed time and care to break down the tough connective tissue. The solution was a slow braise in red wine, broth, and aromatic vegetables. Over several hours, the flavors deepened, and the meat absorbed every note of the wine's richness, creating a dish that was as elegant as it was hearty. For much of the 20th century, this was a homecoming dinner classic, perfect for cold evenings and special occasions. But as cooking habits changed, so did the popularity of slow-braised dishes. People wanted quick meals, not ones that took all afternoon. Short ribs also became more expensive as demand for premium beef cuts soared, making them less common in everyday kitchens. Peach chicken became popular in the 1970s, aligning with an American trend of integrating fruit into savory dishes. This recipe combines the natural sweetness of peaches with the savory depth of chicken, creating a delightful contrast. Browned chicken pieces are simmered with fresh or canned peaches, with ginger and cinnamon adding a layer of spice that complements the sweetness. Additional peach preserves or syrup can be added to enrich the sauce, deepening the dish's flavor profile. A splash of bourbon or brandy is sometimes included, lending a smoky nuance. The sauce is typically thickened with a cornstarch slurry, producing a glossy finish that adheres beautifully to the chicken. This dish illustrates the versatility of chicken as a canvas for flavor, adeptly marrying the sweet with the savory in a uniquely American culinary experiment. Cracklins, on the other hand, I can get behind. They're basically pork rinds, but with a fancy name. Finally, a normal, delicious meal that doesn't make your nose wrinkle. Cracklins were essentially the popcorn of the pork world. These crispy, crunchy bits were made from frying pieces of pork fat and skin until they puff up and become irresistible little nuggets. In the days when every part of the pig was used, cracklins were a way to make a snack out of what would otherwise be discarded. But here's the catch. These didn't really have a lot of benefits when you ate them. Yeah, nothing really screams healthy about eating deep-fried pieces of pork. Think of them as the porky cousin of potato chips. These days, you're more likely to find them in specialty southern stores than on your local supermarket shelf. Cracklins may not be the healthiest choice, but they're a tasty reminder of a time when people knew how to make the most of what they had. Beef and tater tot bake was what happened when practicality met pride. It started with ground beef browned in a skillet mixed with canned vegetables, cream soup, and a pinch of seasoning that every mother knew by heart. Then came the tater tots, lined neatly across the top like soldiers waiting for duty, ready to turn crisp and golden in the oven. The smell that followed was the smell of relief, warm, savory, and steady. The bubbling soup beneath made a soft stew while the tots stayed crunchy, giving each bite a bit of both comfort and contrast. It was a weeknight win that felt like victory, a way to make something hearty without much time or money. When the casserole dish hit the table, conversation started again. The sound of forks clinking was a soundtrack to everyday life, simple, predictable, and full. It proved that love did not need fancy ingredients. It just needed to show up hot. Steamed puddings might sound old-fashioned today, but in the 1970s, dishes like Faithful Fig Pudding carried the weight of centuries-old traditions. Made with dried figs, molasses, and a blend of warming spices, this dessert was a nod to the rich culinary heritage of European settlers. It was dense, aromatic, and perfect for church gatherings, where a hearty dessert could double as a centerpiece. Historically, steamed puddings were practical creations. Long before ovens became common household appliances, steaming was a reliable way to prepare desserts, particularly during the winter months when ovens were occupied with other dishes. Dried figs and molasses were staples in American pantries, thanks to their long shelf life and affordability. Combined with spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, they created a dessert that was rich in flavor and relatively inexpensive to prepare. Despite its deep roots, fig pudding began to fade as tastes shifted toward lighter, quicker-to-make desserts. The lengthy steaming process required patience, a virtue many modern cooks didn't have time for. In the 1970s, grabbing a cold soda meant reaching for a thick glass bottle with bold, colorful branding baked right onto the surface. Those logos and labels weren't just stickers. They were printed directly onto the glass using bright, long-lasting enamel paints. The problem was, many of those paints contained lead, and every sip from the bottle meant a potential exposure to toxic heavy metals. Lead-based paints had been used for decades because they were durable, resisted fading, and made the logos pop. No one thought twice about it. You'd twist off the cap, take a swig, and maybe even collect the empty bottles for a few cents at the local store. Kids played with them, stacked them up, or even used them for makeshift science experiments. But the real science was happening in labs, where researchers began linking lead exposure to serious health risks, especially for children. By the late 20th century, regulations started phasing out lead in household products, including paint, gasoline, and eventually soda bottles. By the early 1990s, U.S. manufacturers had moved to safer alternatives. Today, soda branding is mostly done with paper or plastic labels, but for those who remember the old glass bottles, they were a piece of pop culture, with a little extra toxicity on the side. Few meals capture the essence of Southern cooking like fried chicken with cornbread and collard greens. Each component has a rich history that has shaped American culinary traditions, and together they create a trifecta of flavor, texture, and nostalgia. Fried chicken, with its golden, crispy crust and tender interior, dates back centuries. European immigrants brought the concept of frying poultry, but it was African-American cooks in the South who perfected the technique, seasoning the chicken and frying it in cast-iron skillets. By the mid-20th century, it was a Sunday staple, served to mark special occasions or simply as a reward for the week's hard work. Cornbread, meanwhile, is a true American original, rooted in Native American cooking. Made with cornmeal, it became a Southern classic for its simplicity and versatility. Whether sweetened with a touch of honey or served savory, it's the ideal partner for soaking up juices from the chicken or a splash of hot sauce. And then there are the collard greens, slow-cooked with a bit of pork or bacon fat for a smoky, hearty flavor. Rich in vitamins, they're proof that comfort food can also be nutritious. Anchovy butter steaks are a bold culinary creation, blending the umami depth of anchovies with the rich flavors of succulent steak. Popularized in mid-20th century America, this dish caters to those who appreciate daring flavor combinations. The steak, usually a marbled ribeye or sirloin, is seasoned simply and seared to perfection. The anchovy butter, a mixture of softened butter, finely minced anchovies, garlic, and occasionally a hint of lemon zest or herbs, is then slathered over the hot steak. This compound butter melts into the steak, infusing it with salty and intense anchovy flavors that enhance the natural beefiness. Here, the assertive flavor of anchovies perfectly accentuates the steak's luxurious richness, crafting a dining experience rich in both taste and elegance. Stuffed shells with cottage cheese were the gentle dream of an Italian meal done Southern style. The shells were filled not with expensive ricotta, but with cottage cheese, seasoned with parsley, salt, and a touch of garlic. A jar of tomato sauce made the base, poured thickly over the top and baked until bubbling and fragrant. It was an American twist on an old-world favorite, created by moms who refused to let cost keep them from giving their families something special. The cottage cheese melted softly inside, creamy but light, soaking up the sauce's sweetness. It was filling, tender, and bright on the plate, a little taste of luxury without the price. On weeknights, when money was tight but love was steady, it was enough. It made the table feel like Sunday again. Working mothers built memories one baked dish at a time, turning what they had into what everyone needed. The first forkful was always a quiet one, just to savor the mix of tomato and cheese. Even the smallest kids could sense that this meal meant care. It was proof that joy could be homemade, that pride could be baked into pasta, and that even ordinary kitchens could create a moment of grace. A staple of potlucks, homecoming dinners, and weeknight meals, This creamy, cheesy bake was the ultimate comfort food. With its simple ingredients and easy preparation, cheddar broccoli rice bake became a go-to for busy home cooks looking to feed a crowd on a budget. Rice was one of the most affordable pantry staples, stretching meals and adding heartiness without costing much. Broccoli, whether fresh or frozen, provided a touch of green and a hint of nutrition. But the real star was the cheese sauce, a rich, velvety mixture made with cheddar, milk, and often a can of condensed soup for convenience. Some variations added a crunchy topping like buttered breadcrumbs or crushed crackers for an extra layer of texture. This dish thrived in the 1970s and 80s when casseroles dominated American kitchens. But as fresh vegetables and from-scratch cooking made a comeback, cream-based bakes fell out of favor. The rise of quick, microwavable sides also played a role. Why spend time layering and baking when a bag of steamed broccoli and instant rice could be ready in minutes? For those who grew up with its bubbling, cheesy goodness straight from the oven, this classic deserves a second look. The cheese log, simple yet sophisticated, was a centerpiece of 1970s entertaining, and the Chapel cheese log was a classic example of its enduring charm. A blend of cream cheese, shredded cheddar, and seasonings rolled in crushed nuts, this dish was as much about presentation as it was about flavor. Paired with crackers, it graced countless church potlucks and holiday spreads, offering a bite-sized burst of creamy, nutty indulgence. The origins of the cheese log can be traced back to mid-century culinary trends, when convenience and elegance often went hand in hand. Cheese logs became a staple in the 1960s and 70s, popularized by their ease of preparation and adaptability. Home cooks could mix in herbs, spices, or even dried fruit to suit their tastes, making it versatile for various occasions. Its cylindrical shape and nutty coating also made it easy to transport, a key factor for church gatherings. So why did this once celebrated appetizer fall out of favor? As the 1980s ushered in fancier hors d'oeuvres and international cuisines, the humble cheese log started to feel a bit dated. Pre-packaged cheese spreads also gained popularity, offering a more convenient alternative. Holiday parties in the 1970s weren't complete without a giant bowl of homemade eggnog, rich, creamy, and laced with enough booze to keep the festivities going. It was made the old-fashioned way with fresh eggs, heavy cream, sugar, and a generous pour of rum, brandy, or whiskey. And once mixed, it often sat out for hours, left at room temperature for guests to ladle into their cups all evening long. Refrigeration? That was for leftovers. Eggnog had been made this way for centuries, with the belief that alcohol would kill off any harmful bacteria lurking in the raw eggs. And for the most part, people drank it without issue. Families swore by their own special recipes, passing them down like treasured heirlooms. The longer it sat, the better the flavors blended, or at least that was the logic. But as food safety research advanced, experts started warning that alcohol wasn't the magic disinfectant people thought it was. Raw eggs carried the risk of salmonella, and dairy left out too long could turn an indulgent holiday treat into a fast track to food poisoning. By the late 20th century, pasteurized eggs became the safer choice, and most modern eggnog recipes required refrigeration. Spaghetti with meatballs and garlic bread is an iconic meal that combines Italian tradition with American innovation. While pasta with tomato sauce has roots deep in Italian cuisine, the pairing of spaghetti with meatballs became popular in the United States in the early 20th century, thanks to Italian immigrants looking to recreate familiar dishes in a new land. The meatball itself is believed to have evolved from a mix of ground meats, herbs, and breadcrumbs, often made from leftovers. In Italy, smaller meatballs were served as part of a larger meal, but when Italian-American cooks began to serve them as a standalone dish, they became the hearty centerpiece of spaghetti dinners. The combination of savory meatballs, tomato sauce, and long strands of spaghetti soon became synonymous with comfort and family meals. No spaghetti dinner would be complete without garlic bread. While garlic bread wasn't traditionally Italian, it quickly became a staple in American Italian cuisine. The golden, crispy texture of the bread, combined with the rich garlic butter, complements the pasta perfectly. Minted lamb with jelly brings together the rich, robust flavors of roasted lamb with the refreshing zest of mint jelly, making it a quintessential British dish often featured during spring and Easter celebrations. The long-standing tradition of pairing mint with lamb dates back to medieval England, where the herb's sprightly flavor was used to complement the lamb's slight gaminess. The preparation typically involves roasting a leg or shoulder of lamb, seasoned liberally with salt, pepper, and often aromatic garlic and rosemary, ensuring the meat is juicy and tender. The mint jelly, a blend of mint, sugar, and vinegar, offers a sweet and tangy counterpoint that enhances the meat's deep flavors. This dish exemplifies the classic British culinary technique of marrying robust meat with a vibrant, acidic condiment to create a balanced and satisfying dining experience. Vegetable and cheese quiche was quiet elegance in a busy world. Frozen pie crusts were filled with beaten eggs, leftover vegetables, and shredded cheese, baked until puffed and golden. The kitchen smelled of butter and warmth, the kind that slowed everything down for a moment. It was beautiful on the table, bright with color and soft inside. Moms made it when they needed something light but lovely, proof that even exhaustion could produce grace. Each slice was tender, rich, and full of small victories. It was nourishment and pride in equal measure. Every bite said what words could not, that love, even tired love, was still love. The first slice always held the most promise, the crust flaking just right, the cheese stretching softly beneath the fork. Kids often did not realize they were eating leftovers. It felt like something special. In truth, it was a gift, crafted from care, patience, and the quiet art of making something beautiful from what remained. In the 1970s, plastic was the future. It was lightweight, shatterproof, and perfect for everything from food storage to baby bottles. Parents heated up formula in plastic bottles without a second thought, and leftovers were stored in sturdy, reusable containers. What no one realized was that many of these plastics contained BPA, bisphenol A, a chemical that would later become one of the most controversial additives in food packaging history. BPA was used to make plastic stronger and more durable, and it did its job well. The problem? It didn't just stay in the plastic. When exposed to heat, like in a microwave, dishwasher, or even just warm baby formula, it could leach into food and drinks. By the late 20th century, scientists started studying its effects, linking it to potential hormonal disruptions and developmental issues in children. The public backlash came fast. By the 2000s, consumer pressure pushed many companies to phase out BPA in baby products, and in 2012, the FDA banned it from baby bottles and sippy cups. Today, BPA-free is a major selling point, but back in the 70s, no one thought twice about it. In the world of comfort desserts, few could match the magic of a self-saucing, virtuous vanilla pudding cake. This clever dish baked into two distinct layers, a fluffy vanilla cake on top and a rich, warm pudding underneath. Simple, satisfying, and slightly mysterious, it was a favorite at church potlucks where ingenuity and indulgence often went hand in hand. Self-saucing cakes date back to the early 20th century, gaining popularity during the Great Depression when frugality was key. By the 1970s, the vanilla variation became a staple of community cookbooks, praised for turning pantry basics, flour, sugar, milk, and eggs, into something that felt both luxurious and homemade. Its practicality was unbeatable. Minimal ingredients, no frosting needed, and a built-in sauce that made it feel like two desserts in one. But as dessert trends grew more elaborate in the 1980s and beyond, this humble cake struggled to keep up. The rise of rich layer cakes, cheesecakes, and decorative confections made its understated appearance less appealing. Additionally, the convenience of boxed cake mixes overshadowed the charm of from-scratch baking. Crock-pot stews with budget cuts became a hallmark of clever 1960s cooking as slow cookers began finding their way into more households. Tougher cuts of meat that were cheaper at the butcher could be transformed into tender, flavorful meals after hours of slow simmering. Moms would add potatoes, carrots, onions, and broth, letting everything meld together while they went about their day. The result was a warm, hearty stew waiting by dinner time, made possible by a method that turned thrift into comfort. This trick saved money, reduced stress, and kept family meals consistent even in busy households. It also marked a shift toward modern appliances, making life easier while still honoring the tradition of cooking from scratch with what was available. Kids loved coming home to the smell of a crock-pot meal filling the house, and parents appreciated how far it stretched the grocery budget. Crock-pot stews with budget cuts were more than food, they were a sign of changing times, where clever tools and resourceful recipes kept families fed and happy. Chitlins, or chitterlings, are not for the faint of heart. We're talking pig intestines. Yep, you heard that right. These were cleaned, boiled, and sometimes fried up as a delicacy. Well, more like a necessity. Chitlins were a way to make sure no part of the animal went to waste, especially during lean times. They were also sometimes filled with forcemeat to make sausage, and intestines from other animals, such as cow, lamb, goose, and goat, were also used for making chitterlings. This strange delicacy was a traditional food of the southern United States that spread nationwide with the Black migration. These were taken off our dinner tables for better or worse. It's the kind of dish that makes you appreciate how far food has come and perhaps makes you grateful for modern refrigeration and food safety standards. Few dishes capture the culinary experimentation of the late 20th century quite like this one. With its bold combination of prunes, olives, capers, and white wine, chicken marbella was a breakout star of the 1980s dinner party scene. It was elegant, unexpected, and a perfect example of how sweet and savory flavors could work together in harmony. The recipe originated from the Silver Palate Cookbook, a landmark 1982 publication that introduced home cooks to sophisticated yet approachable recipes. What set this dish apart was its unique balance: briny olives and capers cut through the sweetness of prunes, while white wine and vinegar created a tangy, aromatic sauce. Chicken, an affordable and versatile protein, absorbed the flavors beautifully as it marinated overnight before baking. Despite its popularity, chicken marbella eventually faded from home kitchens. As the 1990s brought a shift toward faster, simpler meals, dishes requiring overnight marination and complex flavor profiles became less common. The rise of international cuisine also introduced new, trendy flavors that overshadowed this once-beloved classic. A dish that combines the simplicity of ground beef and rice with the vibrant crunch of bell peppers, stuffed bell peppers have been a staple in American kitchens for decades. This hearty meal has roots in both European and Mediterranean cuisines, where stuffed vegetables have been enjoyed for centuries. In the U.S., it became a popular choice for families during the 1950s, with ground beef as the primary filling. The dish is incredibly versatile. Ground beef is often seasoned with onions, garlic, and spices, then mixed with rice to create a filling that's packed into hollowed-out bell peppers. The peppers, typically red, green, or yellow, hold the filling and become tender when baked, infusing the entire dish with a sweet, smoky flavor. While some recipes call for tomato sauce or cheese to top the peppers, others leave them as is, letting the natural flavors shine through. This dish is perfect for using up leftovers or for a simple, budget-friendly dinner. Stuffed bell peppers are like a dinner with everything in one package, just like a meal wrapped up with a bow. Next up, we have cicadas. Yes, you heard that right. Cicadas. These insects were eaten during times of food scarcity, offering a protein-rich snack when other food sources were limited. Cicadas are actually quite nutritious, with a nutty flavor that's often compared to almonds or shrimp. Eating insects might sound strange to some, but it's a common practice in many cultures around the world. Cicadas, in particular, were a seasonal delicacy in certain regions, collected and cooked in various ways. In modern times, the idea of eating bugs hasn't quite caught on in the mainstream Western diet, although there's a growing interest in edible insects as a sustainable protein source. Cicadas may not have stood the test of time as a popular food, but they remain a fascinating part of culinary history. Bologna and potato fry-up was the dinner of last resort that no one complained about. Sliced bologna browned in a skillet until the edges curled, joined by cubed potatoes that fried crisp in the same pan. The onions went in next, sizzling in the leftover grease, filling the kitchen with that unmistakable scent of survival and satisfaction. Salt, pepper, and maybe a little mustard were all it needed to come alive. It was cheap, quick, and filling. The kind of meal that got families through those long stretches between paydays. Kids loved the salty flavor. Parents loved that it cost almost nothing and still felt like home. The sound of the spatula scraping the skillet became a kind of evening music, steady and sure. It was not a recipe so much as a rhythm, one born of practicality and pride. In the 1970s, deep frying wasn't just a cooking method, it was a way of life. Fried chicken, onion rings, French fries. If it could be battered, it was dropped into a pot of sizzling oil. And that oil? It wasn't changed nearly as often as you'd think. Whether in diners, fast food kitchens, or even home deep fryers, the same batch of oil was often used for days, sometimes weeks, getting darker and thicker with every batch. Reusing oil wasn't just about saving money, it was considered part of the flavor. Each round of frying added something extra, building up that unmistakable, seasoned taste. Some cooks swore by it, claiming that fresh oil just didn't have the same depth. If the fryer got too low, they simply topped it off with new oil and kept going. But over time, health concerns started bubbling up. Studies showed that repeatedly heating oil at high temperatures could break it down, creating harmful compounds linked to heart disease and even cancer. Old oil could also harbor rancid fats and trans fats, both of which became dietary villains in the late 20th century. Testimony turnip greens, slow-cooked with ham hocks and a splash of vinegar, embodied the resourcefulness of generations who turned humble ingredients into dishes full of flavor and meaning. At church potlucks and family tables, this dish was a testament to heritage and community. Turnip greens have deep roots in Southern cooking, where they were valued for their nutritional benefits and availability. Paired with ham hocks, a cost-effective way to infuse smoky, savory richness, this dish became a staple of rural kitchens. The addition of vinegar not only brightened the greens, but also reflected an age-old culinary practice of balancing rich and tangy flavors. For many families, it was a versatile dish, often served alongside cornbread to soak up the pot liquor, the nutrient-rich broth left behind. But as tastes changed and cooking habits evolved, slow-cooked greens began to fall out of favor. The rise of faster, more convenient vegetable preparations made the hours-long simmering process feel outdated. Moreover, the strong, earthy flavor of turnip greens didn't appeal to everyone, especially younger generations. Still, for those who grew up with them, turnip greens are a reminder of a time when cooking wasn't rushed, and meals were an opportunity to savor both food and fellowship. Once a staple of working-class kitchens, this hearty one-dish meal was built on the kind of ingredients that stretched a family's budget without sacrificing flavor. Cabbage, potatoes, and smoked sausage, three of the most economical and widely available foods, came together in layers, baked slowly in a rich mustard cream sauce. The result was a rustic, deeply satisfying dish that filled bellies and kept families warm through colder months. Cabbage was a practical ingredient, valued for its long shelf life and versatility. When paired with smoky seasoned sausage and starchy potatoes, it created a meal that was both inexpensive and packed with flavor. The mustard-infused cream sauce added a tangy richness, tying everything together. Some home cooks added a dash of vinegar for brightness, while others incorporated cheese for extra indulgence. No matter the variation, this dish was proof that humble ingredients could create something truly special. Why did it fall out of favor? The rise of prepackaged meals and low-carb trends made cabbage-heavy dishes less common, and as quick stovetop meals replaced slow-baked casseroles, this once popular dish faded from view. Spanish rice with tomatoes and green peppers, a flavorful side dish that has graced American tables for decades. Despite its name, it's actually more of a Mexican-American creation, born out of the fusion of traditional Spanish and Mexican cooking. The rich, savory base comes from simmering rice in a seasoned tomato sauce, with green peppers adding a touch of sweetness and color. The origins of Spanish rice can be traced to the influence of the Spanish in Mexico during the colonial period. The use of rice as a staple ingredient spread throughout Latin America, evolving into countless variations. In the United States, especially during the mid-20th century, Spanish rice became a popular side dish to accompany everything from tacos to fried chicken. The addition of green peppers, onions, and garlic to the dish added layers of flavor that made it even more satisfying. Spanish rice with tomatoes and peppers is the side dish that's just as colorful as it is delicious. So much flavor, it almost steals the show. It's a versatile, easy-to-make dish that always pairs well with a variety of main courses. Pickled pig's feet are exactly what they sound like. Pig feet that have been pickled in a vinegar solution with spices. This dish was popular in the South and among certain ethnic groups, offering a tangy, chewy treat that was often eaten as a snack or side dish. The process of pickling preserved the pig's feet, making them a practical choice in times before refrigeration. The vinegar and spices added a punch of flavor that helped mask the natural taste of the feet. Today, pickled pig's feet are more of a novelty than a common food item. They might still be found in some specialty stores, but they're far from a mainstream snack. It's a dish that has mostly fallen out of favor, but for those who enjoy it, it's a taste of nostalgia. So, for much of American history, brewing beer at home was a tradition as old as the country itself. Families crafted their own recipes, adjusting flavors to their liking. But by the early 20th century, Prohibition changed everything. Even after it was repealed in 1933, one strange law remained. While making wine at home was legal, brewing beer was not. That didn't stop people, though. By the 1970s, home brewing was a quiet but thriving underground hobby. People who wanted fresh, custom-made beer often turned to home brewing kits, handed-down recipes, or straight-up improvisation. Fermenting was done in basements, garages, or wherever a bubbling carboy could be tucked away. It wasn't just about cost savings, it was about control. Store-bought beer in the 70s was mostly light, mass-produced lagers. If you wanted something with real character, you had to make it yourself. Legally speaking, though, that homemade brew was contraband. The law didn't exactly make sense, and by the late 1970s, it finally changed. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a bill legalizing home brewing for personal use. That small change set the stage for the craft beer revolution that exploded decades later. Hamburger pie with mashed potatoes was shepherd's pie reimagined for the American table. Ground beef cooked with onions and vegetables filled the bottom of a glass baking dish, then got covered with mashed potatoes smooth as clouds. The top browned just slightly, turning golden and crisp at the edges. Each layer told a story: the meat of labor, the potatoes of care, the warmth of love. It was hearty enough for any appetite, but soft enough for even the littlest ones. Moms baked it when the week had worn everyone thin, knowing it would bring smiles without complaint. It was the kind of dinner that required no words, just seconds. The smell of gravy and potatoes lingered long after, a quiet reminder of comfort earned and shared. When the spoon broke through the crust, it released steam that carried the scent of home-cooked grace. The casserole dish always came back empty, scraped clean with gratitude. Each serving tasted like relief, rich, familiar, and dependable. It was the food of kindness, the kind that needed no decoration or praise, only the comfort of being together. When it comes to simple yet elegant meals, few combinations can match the light, flaky fish paired with the richness of lemon butter and the crispness of asparagus. Baked cod or halibut are perfect choices for this dish. Both are mild white fish that take well to a variety of seasonings, but it's the lemon butter that steals the show, bringing a burst of freshness that complements the delicate flavors of the fish. Cod and halibut have been long favorites in American kitchens, especially along the coastlines where they're abundant. Cod, with its firm texture, has been a staple in New England since the colonial era, while halibut is prized for its mild taste and large fillets. Both fish are low in fat but high in protein, making them an excellent choice for a healthy, satisfying dinner. Asparagus, often served alongside fish in this dish, is packed with vitamins and minerals, making it a nutritious addition. The key to a great asparagus side is cooking it just enough to maintain its crunch, while the lemon butter ties everything together in perfect harmony. A meal like this is a reminder that simple ingredients can create something extraordinary. Vegetable chowder with saltines was soup born from imagination. A few cans of mixed vegetables, a splash of milk, a knob of butter, and a spoon of flour turned into something creamy, hearty, and full of care. Potatoes made it thick, corn made it sweet, and a crumble of saltines on top made it complete. The smell was soft and warm, like milk steaming beside a stove. It filled bowls that had seen better days and hearts that just needed something kind. Moms made it without measuring. A handful of this, a pinch of that, trusting instinct over recipe. It was not fancy, but it was honest. You could taste the effort in every spoonful. Children dipped crackers into the bowl until only a few crumbs remained, proof that love had been served again. It was the art of enough, simmered slowly and shared quietly. For much of the 20th century, liver and onions wasn't just a meal, it was practically a dietary requirement. Packed with iron, protein, and vitamins, liver was considered a superfood long before the term even existed. Parents fed it to their kids, doctors recommended it for anemia, and budget-conscious families relied on it as a cheap, nutritious staple. In some households, it showed up on the dinner table multiple times a week, fried up with onions and served alongside mashed potatoes or rice. The preparation was simple. Soak the liver in milk to mellow out the strong metallic taste, dredge it in flour, and fry it in a sizzling pan. The onions helped mask the intense flavor, but for many kids, no amount of onions could make it more appealing. Complaints were met with the usual response: "It's good for you." But as nutrition science advanced, concerns grew over excessive vitamin A intake, especially from beef liver. Too much could lead to toxicity, causing dizziness, bone issues, and even birth defects in pregnant women. By the 1990s, liver's reputation faded, and dietary guidelines recommended eating it in moderation. Salmon patties, a classic dish found in many American homes, offer a tasty and affordable way to enjoy fish. Often made with canned salmon, these patties are mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and seasonings, then fried to golden perfection. The dish has roots in the 1940s, when canned fish became a popular pantry staple due to its long shelf life and affordability during tough economic times. Despite being simple, salmon patties are packed with protein, omega-3 fatty acids, and heart-healthy nutrients, making them both a tasty and nutritious choice. The secret to a great salmon patty lies in its texture, crispy on the outside, yet tender and flaky on the inside. Often paired with a generous helping of creamed peas, this dish takes on a comforting, homey feel. Creamed peas are made by cooking fresh or frozen peas in a creamy sauce, sometimes enhanced with butter, milk, and a touch of seasoning. The creamy, mild flavor of the peas balances the richness of the salmon patties, creating a perfectly matched duo. Salmon patties with creamed peas are the kind of comfort food that makes you think, "Why did I ever stop eating this?" It's an easy, satisfying meal that stood the test of time, offering comfort with every bite. Leftover turkey was once the foundation of creative home cooking. Long before frozen dinners and deli slices, resourceful cooks found ways to repurpose every part of a roasted bird. One of the most inventive solutions? A golden, bubbling gratin that transformed shredded turkey into something just as satisfying as the holiday feast itself. Sweet potatoes, naturally rich and slightly sweet, paired perfectly with the savory depth of turkey. Thinly sliced and layered, they acted as both a starch and a built-in flavor enhancer. A cheesy herbed cream sauce seeped into every bite, bringing a velvety richness that made this dish feel indulgent despite its humble origins. Some families added a pinch of nutmeg for warmth, while others topped it with breadcrumbs for a golden, crispy finish. For decades, this dish was a practical way to extend a meal and avoid food waste. Turkey was affordable, especially in the days when whole birds were purchased rather than prepackaged cuts. Sweet potatoes, widely available and inexpensive, provided both nutrition and flavor. As quick-fix meals and processed leftovers became the norm, dishes requiring careful layering and slow baking lost their appeal. Frankfurter supper stew was childhood fun served in a bowl. Sliced hot dogs bubbled in a pot of beans, corn, and tomatoes until everything thickened into a sweet, smoky stew. It was fast, cheap, and full of joy, the kind of meal that brought giggles to the table. Every spoonful was a mix of soft beans and tangy tomato, with the salt of the hot dogs tying it all together. It was the kind of dish that needed no sides and no apology, only bread to soak up what was left. The pot emptied fast, proof that satisfaction did not need sophistication. It was family food in its truest form, humble, hearty, and made for laughter. The hot dogs curled slightly at the edges, soaking up all that tomato flavor until they glistened. Kids loved it for its sweetness. Parents loved it because it filled everyone up for next to nothing. It was the sound of spoons clinking, the sight of empty bowls, the comfort of knowing that even on the leanest nights there was joy in sharing what you had. In the 1970s, canned soup was a kitchen staple. With just a can opener and a pot, you had an instant meal, thick, salty, and packed with flavor. But what made it so addictive? A little ingredient called MSG, monosodium glutamate, was the secret behind that deep, savory taste that made every spoonful feel richer than it actually was. Tomato soup, chicken noodle, cream of mushroom, virtually every variety had a hefty dose of it. MSG had been used in processed foods for decades, praised for enhancing flavor and making even the simplest ingredients taste more complex. Food manufacturers loved it because it masked the blandness of cheap ingredients, creating the illusion of homemade quality. And for consumers, it made canned soup feel more satisfying, even when it was mostly water and salt. But in the late 20th century, MSG came under fire. Reports of headaches, nausea, and a mysterious collection of symptoms dubbed Chinese restaurant syndrome led to widespread concern. While scientific studies later found no definitive link between MSG and health issues for most people, the damage was done. By the 1990s, food companies started reducing MSG levels and slapping "No MSG" labels on their products. Fish sticks, those crispy, golden-breaded delights, have been a fixture of American family dinners since the mid-20th century. While their origins date back to the early 1950s, when commercial frozen food production boomed, fish sticks quickly became a go-to for busy families. Made from white fish, typically cod or pollock, these little rectangular pieces of seafood are battered and deep-fried to perfection, making them as crunchy on the outside as they are tender on the inside. The classic pairing of fish sticks with tartar sauce elevates the meal. Tartar sauce, a tangy combination of mayonnaise, pickles, and lemon juice, adds a creamy contrast to the crispy fish. While the sauce has its roots in French cuisine, it became a beloved accompaniment to fish and chips, and later to fish sticks in the US. On the side, coleslaw, a salad made from finely shredded raw cabbage, carrots, and a tangy dressing, has been a popular addition to fish dishes for generations. Its crisp texture and slightly sweet flavor balance out the richness of the fish and tartar sauce. For generations, baked cod was a dependable, no-fuss dinner, particularly in coastal and New England households. Light, flaky, and mild in flavor, cod was one of the most affordable fish available, making it a practical choice for families looking to put a nutritious meal on the table without overspending. Topped with a crisp breadcrumb and herb crust, this dish was both simple and satisfying, proof that great cooking didn't need to be complicated. Cod's popularity was tied to its abundance. Throughout much of the 20th century, fresh or frozen cod was readily available at grocery stores and fish markets, and it didn't require elaborate preparation. A coating of breadcrumbs, butter, and fresh herbs locked in moisture while creating a crunchy, golden brown topping. Baked rather than fried, this dish had a lighter texture, making it a favorite among those who wanted something hearty without being heavy. So why did it disappear? Overfishing led to shortages, making cod more expensive, and as frozen fish sticks and pre-breaded fillies flooded supermarkets, many home cooks stopped preparing fish from scratch. Smoked fish pie is a dish that combines comfort with bold, smoky flavor. Popular in the United Kingdom and other coastal regions, this hearty pie features a blend of tender smoked fish, often cod, haddock, or salmon, cooked in a creamy sauce, all tucked beneath a rich mashed potato crust. This combination of smokiness and creaminess is balanced perfectly by the smooth texture of mashed potatoes, creating a dish that feels both indulgent and satisfying. The origins of smoked fish pie trace back to the tradition of using smoked fish as a preservation method, particularly in maritime cultures. Smoking fish was an effective way to keep it fresh for longer periods, and the technique made its way into home cooking as a flavorful method for adding depth to dishes. The mashed potato crust, a beloved comfort food component, serves as the ultimate topping, golden and crispy on top, soft and fluffy on the inside. It's a dish that's rich in history and flavor, offering a unique twist on traditional pies. Smoked fish pie with mashed potato crust brings together the best of both worlds, seafood and comfort, making it a dish that's sure to please the whole family. Teen parties in the 1970s were a little different from today. There were no viral videos, no social media evidence, just loud music, questionable fashion choices, and in some cases, a tray of brightly colored gelatin shots hidden in the fridge. These boozy little treats, made by mixing flavored gelatin with hard liquor, were a sneaky way for underage drinkers to bypass the telltale scent of alcohol. If a parent walked by, they just looked like an innocent dessert. The concept was simple. Boil water, stir in a packet of gelatin, and instead of cold water, add vodka, rum, or whatever was on hand. Pour it into small cups, let it set, and within a few hours, the party had a new centerpiece. The appeal? They were easy to make, easy to eat, and for inexperienced drinkers, easy to underestimate. While underage drinking was nothing new, the rise of gelatin shots added an extra layer of risk. The alcohol wasn't diluted in a cocktail. It was concentrated in a sweet, jiggly form that went down too easily. By the 1980s, stricter laws on underage drinking and alcohol enforcement made these party staples less common. Which 1970s recipe are you adding to your must-try list? Share your favorites in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe so we can keep bringing these timeless flavors back to your kitchen.